Chapter 253. In the abandoned factory, there was an empty hall with some oil barrels and lumber scattered around. Xia Dong was tied to a thick pillar, and there were 2 assassins watching over the hall. There were also 2 men with submachine guns patrolling upstairs. The heavy footsteps were especially clear in the empty factory, like a dull drum beating on one's eardrums. The sky was getting darker, and Xia Dong's body became stiff. She shook her head and moaned. A man approached her and stared at her with his sharp eyes. Xia Dong signaled with her eyes for him to tear off the tape on her mouth. The man was called Victor. He tore off the tape on her mouth. Her lips hurt, and she frowned. She moved her numb lips and said, "I want to go to the toilet." Victor said coldly, "Don't you dare play any tricks." Xia Dong panicked. "I'm not playing any tricks. I really want to go to the toilet." Victor glanced at her and waved his hand to call his companion. "Johnny, take her to the toilet." The man named Johnny was burly. He handed the submachine gun to his companion and untied the rope on Xia Dong's body. Her legs were almost numb. After the rope was untied, she moved her legs and said, "And the rope on my hands." "The rope on my hands can't be untied yet," Johnny said coldly. He pulled out a gun from his waist and pointed at her. "Walk forward." Xia Dong pursed her lips. Under his order, she followed him to the toilet. The toilet was covered in dust, and the floor was full of dirt. Some of the cubicle doors had fallen off, and the sink was dark and dirty. Xia Dong frowned in disgust. She raised her wrist and said, "Can you untie me now?" Johnny stared at her fiercely. "Don't play any tricks." Xia Dong smiled bitterly. "What tricks can a pregnant woman like me play?" Johnny thought about it and agreed. She had been blindfolded along the way. She didn't even know where she was. Even if she escaped from the toilet, she couldn't escape from the factory because they had already set up an inescapable net in the factory. He untied her hands and she walked into a cubicle. Seeing that he had no intention of leaving, she coughed and said, "Please leave first." Johnny closed the door of the cubicle and said coldly, "I'll stay here." He pulled out his pistol and aimed it at the cubicle door. If there was anything wrong with her, he would shoot without hesitation. Anyway, as long as he kept her alive, he didn't care about breaking her arms and legs. Xia Dong had no choice but to press the button on the water tank. Fortunately, there was still water in the water tank, and the sound of the water could cover up the sound she made, so it was not too embarrassing. After she was done, she pulled up her pants and touched her bulging abdomen. She smiled. "I'm done. I'm coming out." Xia Dong knew that Johnny must be on high alert, so she reminded him before pushing the door open so that he wouldn't mistakenly think that she was playing tricks and accidentally hurt her. Johnny took a step back and the cubicle door opened. Xia Dong walked out slowly. She held her abdomen and walked to the sink. This place had been abandoned for too long. The water that flowed out of the pipes was yellow with rust. After about a minute, the water became clear. Xia Dong then put her hands under the tap. "Okay, let's go back." Xia Dong retracted her hands and turned around. Johnny pointed his pistol at her. "You walk in front and go back the way you came." When they returned to the factory hall, the lights inside were already turned on. The dazzling light shone down from the roof. Xia Dong closed her eyes uncomfortably. Johnny took the rope and was about to tie her up again when she pleaded, "I'm a little uncomfortable. Can you not tie me up? I promise I won't run away." "No." Johnny refused and dragged her to the side of the pillar. "How about this? Give me a chair. I'm tired and want to sit down and rest." Johnny ignored her request and tied her to the pillar. This time, he didn't put tape on her mouth. Xia Dong said pitifully, "I'm hungry. Can you give me something to eat? I'm pregnant. You can't abuse me." Johnny frowned and his temples throbbed. He really wanted to slap her. He had never seen such a troublesome hostage. Victor held the submachine gun in his hand and sat on a chair at the side. He said coldly, "Johnny, let go of her hands and give her food and water. She was still useful and couldn't die." Johnny glared at Xia Dong indignantly and took bread and mineral water from the wooden table next to him. Although Xia Dong didn't want to eat the food at all, she had to force herself to eat it in order to maintain her strength. She ate the bread in small bites and tried to delay eating as long as possible so that her hands could have more time to rest. On the other side, the whole castle was in a state of extreme tension. Tomac sent many people to search for Xia Dong's whereabouts. Mika Keto also led people to search for her personally, but they didn't find any clues. They didn't tell Bailey Han about Xia Dong's disappearance. Instead, they lied to him and said that Xia Dong was accompanying Xiao Guai in the castle and wouldn't go back tonight. Bailey Han didn't think much about it and believed them. Nightingale had been hiding in the dense forest, monitoring the situation in the castle from a distance. She saw cars coming in and out of the castle frequently, and everyone had a dignified and anxious look on their faces. It seemed that they really valued Xia Dong. She had made the right bet. Nightingale reported the situation to Wolf, and Wolf discussed with Barit. They would contact Tomac the next morning and put forward their conditions. At night, the 4 guards were in groups of 2, taking turns to guard and rest. Xia Dong envied them for sleeping on the sofa, while she could only sit on the hard cement floor. Her hands and feet were tied, which made her very uncomfortable, especially her stomach. "Hey, Johnny, please give me a blanket." Xia Dong shouted at Johnny, who was patrolling. What a troublesome woman. Johnny muttered with dissatisfaction, but still threw a blanket on her. "Thank you." Xia Dong arched her body with difficulty and covered herself with the blanket. She leaned her head against the stone pillar and closed her eyes to rest. No matter how difficult the situation was, she had to rest and maintain enough physical strength to deal with the fierce battle tomorrow. The next morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone through the broken window into the hall, Xia Dong suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes quickly flashed with a trace of light. 10 meters in front of her, Johnny and Victor were sitting on the chairs with their heads down and taking a nap. On the other side, on the 2 big sofas, 2 tall and sturdy men were curled up on it, sleeping soundly. She bent her feet back, and the heels of her feet were close to her hands. Under the cover of the blanket, she put her right hand's fingers into her shoes and took out a 2-centimeter long blade from under the insole. The blade was very thin, but it was very sharp and could cut iron like mud. She hid a blade in her left and right feet. She hid the 2 blades in her sleeves in case of an emergency. After doing all this, she quietly closed her eyes. A few seconds later, she heard someone stand up from the chair, causing the chair to make a banging sound. "Hey, Johnny, wake up." Victor pushed Johnny's shoulder. Johnny was shocked. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, it's daybreak." "Wake up, Feej will be here in a while." "Okay, I got it." "Buddy, you stay here and watch. I'm going to the bathroom." Johnny threw the submachine gun to Victor. Xia Dong pretended to be awakened by the 2's conversation and slowly opened her eyes. Victor glanced at her and ignored her. He walked straight to the sofa and woke up his other 2 companions. When Johnny came back, Xia Dong also said that she wanted to go to the bathroom. As usual, Johnny took her there. When she washed her hands, she also washed her face and rinsed her mouth. She followed Johnny back to the hall, where the others were having breakfast. Victor handed her a hamburger and a bottle of mineral water. She said thank you and spread the blanket on the floor. She sat on the blanket and let Johnny tie her feet again. She held the hamburger in her hands and slowly ate it. After eating, she looked up calmly and looked at Victor. "What do you want by kidnapping me?" Victor said calmly, "You'll find out soon enough." After more than an hour, a large truck and a Hummer stopped outside the factory. The door of the truck opened and a group of men in black jumped out. There were at least 30 to 40 of them. They were fully armed and did not enter the factory from the main entrance. Instead, they entered the factory from other entrances. Xia Dong could only hear a lot of messy footsteps. She lowered her eyes and listened carefully. After the footsteps disappeared, she whispered in Chinese, 34. As she spoke too softly and in Chinese, Victor and the others did not hear her. Vroom vroom, the large truck drove to the back of the factory and stopped in the garage. The door of the Hummer opened and a blond man walked out first. He was Feige. Feige walked to the back seat with steady steps and opened the door elegantly. There was a respectful look on his handsome face. "Boss." Barit walked out of the car. His deep eyes carried a dangerous message. His tall aquiline nose made his slightly chubby face look even more sinister. They did not enter from the main entrance but from the back door. They walked upstairs slowly. Standing by the railing on the second floor, Barit looked at the people in the hall and said coldly, "Inform Tomac." "Yes." Feige bowed respectfully. Feige hung up the earpiece and said a few words in a low voice. Victor responded and took off the earpiece. He took out a cell phone and handed it to Xia Dong. He said in a deep voice, "Call Tomac." Xia Dong looked up at him. His eyes were fierce. "Hurry up and call him." She pursed her lips, took the cell phone, and pressed a string of numbers. Beep beep. After the phone rang twice, Tomac's deep and authoritative voice came through. "Who is this?" Xia Dong opened her mouth. "Godfather, it's me." Tomac asked nervously, Xia, where are you?" Xia Dong was about to speak when Victor snatched the cell phone from her hand and said in a deep voice, "Tomac, your goddaughter is in my hands now." Tomac asked calmly, "What do you want for you to let her go?" Victor laughed. 5 billion. "Give me 5 billion pounds and I'll let her go." Tomac did not hesitate. "No problem. Time and place?" A calculating look flashed across Victor's eyes. He sneered. "The transaction can only be completed by you and Mika Keto. At noon, the two of you will wait by the fountain in the central square. Remember, no one is allowed to bring anyone. Otherwise, you'll see Xia Dong's corpse." "Okay." After Tomac hung up the phone, he immediately ordered his subordinates to prepare the ransom and informed Mika Keto to go with him. At noon, at the central square. The spacious square was crowded with tourists. Beside the fountain, two tall and straight figures stood upright, each of them carrying a black password-locked suitcase in their hands. Time passed by. The tourists taking pictures by the fountain changed several times, but they still did not see the person who was supposed to meet them. Mika Keto's face was cold. She raised her wrist and looked at her watch. It's been half an hour and they still haven't arrived. Could there be a change in the situation? Let's wait a little longer. Tomac quickly scanned the surroundings and did not see anyone suspicious. Suddenly, a 7 or 8-year-old blonde girl ran in front of them. She raised her head and smiled sweetly. "Come with me." Tomac and Mika Keto quickly exchanged glances. They carried the password-protected suitcase and followed the little girl out of the square. They turned a corner and stood at the corner. The little girl stopped and looked up at them with a smile. Then, she ran away quickly. Mika Keto narrowed her eyes and was about to chase after the little girl when a black Cadillac stopped in front of them. Two men in black suits stepped out of the car and said coldly, "Please get in the car." Tomac and Mika Keto sat in the back seat. The car started immediately. The two men scanned them with a detector. They took out a pistol from Tomac's waist and 2 daggers from Mika Keto's calf. One of the men put the weapons in the car's glove compartment. The other man took out 2 black ribbons and tied them around Tomac and Mika Kito's eyes. Then, he pointed a pistol at their temples. Don't play any tricks. Otherwise, I'll kill you right now. More than 2 hours later, the Cadillac arrived outside the abandoned factory. Get out of the car. The 2 hitmen pointed their pistols at Tomac and Mika Kito's heads and ordered them to get out of the car. Tomac and Mika Kito carried the password-protected suitcase and walked steadily into the factory hall. They were elegant and calm. They did not look intimidated at all. Xia Dong saw the 2 men walking in from outside. She shouted, "Godfather, Brother Shen." Mika Kito took a step forward. She looked concerned. Xia, are you okay?" Xia Dong shook her head. "I'm fine." "You shouldn't have come, shut up." Victor slapped Xia Dong's face. Her head jerked to the side and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Mika Kito was furious. "What are you doing? We've already brought the ransom money. Let her go now." Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 254. Let her go? If we let her go so easily, then why are we going through all this trouble? A familiar cold voice came from the second floor of the hall. Following the sound of heavy footsteps, Tomac saw a slightly plump man standing by the railing. He frowned and said angrily, "Barit, did you do all this? How dare you kidnap my daughter?" Barit said coldly, "That's right, I did it." Tomac was so angry that his whole body trembled. Barit walked down the stairs step by step. He looked at Tomac with contempt and said mockingly, "Aren't you the father of the mafia? Aren't you very capable? Why are you bringing ransom to save your daughter now? You bastard, Barit, I'm going to kill you with my own hands." Tomac's eyes were burning with anger. "Unfortunately, I won't give you the chance." Barit sneered and waved his hand. Fitch, who was behind him, took out a contract from his briefcase and handed it to Tomac. "What is this?" Tomac raised his head arrogantly. Barit's lips curled into a complacent smile. "This is a property transfer agreement. After you sign this agreement, all of your property, including your castle and your family members, will be mine. Don't even think about it." "I won't sign this agreement." Tomac refused immediately. "It's fine if you don't want to sign it." Barit waved his hand. Victor pulled the trigger and aimed the pistol at Xia Dong's head. Tomac's face turned ugly. He stared at Barit fiercely like a raging lion, ready to pounce and bite Barit's throat at any time. Barit was intimidated by Tomac's ferocious eyes. He was timid for a second, but he quickly calmed down. Now that he had something on Tomac, the one who should be afraid should be Tomac, not himself. "Hurry up and sign it," Barit urged coldly. Tomac took the agreement and carefully read the terms on it. This was a property transfer agreement in the name of donation. To put it bluntly, Barit was using the cover of legality as a cover to take away all of his property. Tomac's eyes were filled with rage and hatred. He read the contract very carefully and tried to stall for time. However, Barit saw through his intentions and gave Fitch a look. Fitch quickly walked in front of Xia Dong and pulled her up from the ground. He pointed the dagger at her stomach and said coldly, "I'll give you 1 minute. If you don't sign it, I'll kill her child first." Xia Dong said anxiously, "No. Don't hurt my child." Mika Kito's eyes narrowed and his expression changed. He clenched his fists tightly. "Let her go." Fei Qi sneered. 50 seconds left. Tomac's eyes showed signs of struggle. His hand that was holding the pen began to tremble. Barit laughed proudly. "Tomac, hurry up and sign it. Otherwise, you won't be able to see your cute daughter and grandson." 40 seconds left. Fei Qi reminded coldly. Xia Dong shook her head helplessly. Her face was filled with panic and sorrow. Her hands were tied behind her back and her shoulders were trembling slightly. In Fei Qi and Barit's eyes, she was panicking to the extreme. However, in reality, she quietly took out a blade from her sleeve and pointed it at the rope around her wrists. 20 seconds left. Barit stared at Tomac carefully. He didn't want to miss the expression on his face. His cold face revealed a hesitant expression. How interesting. Barit mocked, Tomac, don't you love your adopted daughter the most? What, you can't bear to give up all of your property in exchange for her life? 10 seconds left. Mika Keto clenched her fists and couldn't help but call out, adoptive father. Tomac closed his eyes as if he was listening to something. Suddenly, his eyes opened abruptly. His gaze swept across the second floor quickly and he said coldly, let her go and I'll sign it. That's the way. Fei Qi, let her go. Barit raised his eyebrows proudly. A treacherous smile appeared on his slightly plump face. It made people feel as disgusted as if they had swallowed a fly. Tomac held the pen and placed the tip of the pen on the blank space where the signature should be. He didn't put the pen down for a long time. Barit was impatient. Tomac, you old bastard. Hurry up and sign it. Tomac raised his head abruptly. His eyes were sharp like an eagle's as he stared at Barit. His thin lips were tightly pursed and he didn't say a word. Barit suddenly pulled out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Tomac's head. He said fiercely, hurry up, or I'll blow your head off. Tomac smiled coldly. You're the one who's going to get your head blown off, Barit. Just as he finished speaking, a few gunshots rang out and the gun in Barit's hand was knocked away. The other assassins were shot and fell to the ground. Barit shouted loudly, hurry up and kill them. Xia Dong suddenly jumped up from the ground and grabbed Fei Qi's wrist with both hands. She threw him to the ground fiercely. At the same time, the blade in her hand slid across his neck and fresh blood flowed down. Fei Qi stared at Xia Dong with his eyes wide open. Until his death, he still couldn't understand how this woman could suddenly explode with such strength. A group of men in black suits suddenly rushed out from all directions and surrounded the railing on the second floor. They aimed their black muzzles at the people in the hall. Barit pointed at Tomac and the others and shouted, kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. No one made a move. Barit was furious. What's wrong with you guys? Hurry up and kill them. Tomac laughed loudly. Barit, let me tell you what's going on. They're not your men at all. They're my men from the Dark Knight family. Barit couldn't believe his eyes as he glanced at the group of people. He staggered. No, impossible. I've clearly placed more than 30 people in this factory. Tomac looked at him coldly. 34 of them were all killed by my men. The ones you see now are all my men. Barit looked around. All the muzzles were aimed at him. Now, he was the only one left in the hall. He tightened his lips and clenched his fists. How did you do it? Even if he failed, he wanted to know where he went wrong. Tomac's sight fell on Xia Dong's body. He nodded lightly. Xia Dong suddenly lifted her clothes. Her bulging belly could be seen. Barit was puzzled. Suddenly, he saw her grabbing her stomach tightly with both of her hands and tearing it apart. A soft thing that looked like human skin was torn off. She threw that thing on the ground. Her belly had returned to its original smooth and flat state. Barit was shocked. You're not Xia Dong. Of course I'm not Xia Dong. My name is Suzaku. Don't forget my name on the road to hell. Suzaku returned to her usual voice. It was cold and emotionless. However, her face was still Xia Dong's. This was the result of her disguise. It could only be washed off with a special potion. Barit's eyes widened. No wonder you're so good at fighting. He saw how she took Fitch's life with just one move. It was only at this moment that Barit realized that he had fallen into the other party's trap. He gritted his teeth in hatred. Suzaku kicked away the fake skin that was made of resin. It felt no different from a real person's skin. A small tracking device was revealed. She said coldly, "It's this thing that exposed your hiding place." Tomac continued, "Before your people set up an ambush in this factory, my people had already set up an ambush inside. When Ashen and I walked in here, they began to replace your people one by one. So, the reason why you're dealing with me is to stall for time so that you can replace them all?" "Correct." Tomac smiled eerily. "Barit, you've been scheming against me. Now that you've failed miserably, what last wishes do you have? Tell me. Maybe I'll be kind and help you fulfill them." Barit's eyes flashed coldly. "Who said that I've failed miserably? I still have one last move. At worst, we'll die together." Unknowingly, an MP4-like thing appeared in his hand. His thumb pressed on the red button and he said coldly, "This is the detonator. I've already asked my people to bury a bomb in this factory. The bomb's power is enough to destroy the buildings within a kilometer radius. As long as I press the button, you'll all have to go to hell with me." "So?" Tomac shrugged, looking as if he did not think much of it. Barit held the detonator tightly. "Let me go and we'll forget about this." Tomac crossed his arms and said indifferently, "Impossible." Barit was furious. He said fiercely, "I'll give you 1 minute to consider. Otherwise, I'll detonate the bomb." Tomac sneered. "There's no need to consider. You can detonate the bomb now." Barit held the detonator and didn't move. He was the one who asked his people to bury the bomb. He knew how powerful it was. He still had a last hope that it could threaten Tomac. "What's wrong? You don't dare to press the button. If you continue to hesitate, my people will immediately blow your head off. At that time, we'll see if you're faster than my people." Tomac sneered. Click click. In the spacious hall, the sound of bullets being loaded could be heard. The sound was uniform. Barit knew that there were dozens of guns aimed at him. He clenched his teeth and made up his mind to die together with them. He closed his eyes and pressed the button. It was quiet all around. There wasn't the explosion that he expected, nor was there the pain that he imagined. Barit opened his eyes in disbelief. He looked around stiffly. The black muzzles were still pointed at him. What was different was that everyone had a mocking smile on their faces. Tomac spread out his hands. "Barit, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Last night, my people had already defused all the bombs." Barit looked 10 years older in an instant. He staggered a few steps back and the detonator in his hand fell to the ground. "I've said it before. I'll personally execute you." Tomac took the pistol from his subordinate and aimed at Barit's head. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. In order to not arouse his suspicion, they burned down the entire factory after they left. Even if Wild Wolf found them, he would only see ruins and burnt corpses. He wouldn't be able to tell if they were from the Yuri's family or the Dark Knight family. Mika Kito put an ankle-like electronic monitoring device on Barit's ankle and warned him, "This ankle-like device has an electronic monitoring function, and it's also a bomb. If you remove it by force, the bomb will explode immediately." Barit's face was ashen. "I've already fallen into your hands, of course I won't play any more tricks." For the sake of caution, only a few people knew that Barit was captured. Even Xiaodong and Mika Kito didn't tell them. They planned to tell her after they captured Wild Wolf and the other two. Mika Kito and Suzaku hid in Barit's car and entered his castle. The guards in the castle were soon replaced by the Dark Knight family. They hid in the castle, waiting for the night to come. In the evening, the castle was brightly lit. The whole castle was shrouded in bright lights, looking mysterious and charming. A banquet was being held in the hall. Everyone was wearing beautiful clothes and drinking wine. Barit was wearing a tuxedo, and he was gracefully thanking the guests. Mika Kito and Suzaku had disguised themselves. Mika Kito was holding Suzaku's waist. They were dancing in the hall, but they were secretly paying attention to the guests in the hall. The banquet had been going on for half an hour, but Wild Wolf and the other two were still nowhere to be seen. Mika Kito's eyes darkened. Could it be that the three of them had sensed that something was wrong and were hiding? While she was pondering, the butler led the three guests into the hall. The man in front was about 30 years old. He was wearing a black suit, and his face was cold. Behind him was a man and a woman. The man was handsome, but there was a hint of evilness in his eyes. The woman was wearing a fiery red evening dress. Her hair was tied up high, and she looked charming and charming. Suzaku moved closer to Mika Kito's ear with a faint smile on her face. In the eyes of outsiders, they looked like a couple. She whispered, "I know that woman. She's Huahu." In the circle of killers in a city, there weren't many female killers. The top ones were Suzaku and Huahu. They had met once before. Mika Kito whispered, "Keep an eye on Barit and act according to the situation." "Got it." The dance music just ended. Mika Kito let go of Suzaku's waist and nodded to her with a faint smile. She also smiled and nodded. The two of them walked into the crowd like other dance partners. Mika Kito aimed at Barit. She saw him leading Wild Wolf and the other two to the side hall, while Suzaku held a cocktail in her hand and walked gracefully through the crowd. It was very quiet in the side hall. Barit led Wild Wolf and the other two into the hall and said with a smile, "Thanks to the help of the three of you, I was able to get rid of Tomac." Wild Wolf nodded faintly. Nightingale smiled and said, "I'm curious. Why didn't the underworld send out any news about Tomac's death?" Huahu's beautiful eyes flashed. This was the reason why the three of them were late by half an hour. They didn't receive any news about Tomac's death and were suspicious. They deliberately watched from 1 kilometer away from the castle for a long time. They didn't dare to walk in until they confirmed that many influential figures in the underworld had come to the Yuri's family's banquet. Barit smiled and said, "Here's the thing. I plan to take advantage of this banquet to announce Tomac's death and replace him so that the Yuri's family will be the #1 family." "I see." Nightingale touched her chin with a sly smile in her slender eyes. "There's no news from the castle of the Dark Knight. I wonder what's going on." Barit shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe they're afraid that the underworld people will rebel if the news of his death is spread, so they deliberately hide it." Wild Wolf coughed and said, "Mr. Barit, the three of us are here to congratulate you and also to say goodbye to you. We'll go back to China tonight." Barit frowned. "Why are you in such a hurry?" Wild Wolf said indifferently, "There are still some things in the country." "Well, I won't keep you." Barit waved his hand and a servant came over with a tray with 4 glasses of champagne on it. He made an inviting gesture. Wild Wolf and the other two took a glass of champagne from the tray. Barit raised his glass and said with a smile, "I want to thank you for helping me win. Here's to you." "You flatter me." The 4 glasses clinked and made a crisp sound. Barit was the first to drink the champagne in his glass. Wild Wolf looked down at his glass and took a small sip. Nightingale drank it all in one gulp and Firefox only took a small sip. The smile on Barit's face froze. He put down his glass and said seriously, "I'm very sorry." The three of them didn't understand the meaning of his words. Barit suddenly fell on the thick carpet with blood flowing out of his 7 orifices. His eyes were wide open and he died with grievances. Wild Wolf was shocked. He looked at the three of them. Nightingale suddenly held his throat with both hands. His face turned purple and his limbs twitched. He shouted hoarsely, so uncomfortable, "The wine is poisoned," thump. Nightingale also fell on the ground with blood flowing out of his 7 orifices. Wild Wolf and Firefox bent down at the same time and put their fingers into their throats. Soon, they spat out a puddle of filth. "Quick, let's get out of here." Wild Wolf took out a pistol from his waist and ran towards the main hall with Firefox. There were many people there. As long as they ran into the crowd, it would be difficult for the enemy to find them. They knew that their plan to deal with the Dark Knight family had been exposed. The poisoned wine they drank must be the revenge arranged by Tomac. However, when they ran to the door of the side hall, 2 figures appeared at the door. The tall and straight man stood in front of them. The woman's beautiful face was expressionless. They were like 2 messengers from hell, coldly waiting for them to walk into the trap. Mika Keto said coldly, "Put down the pistol." The 2 of them still wanted to resist. Wild Wolf aimed at Mika Keto and was about to pull the trigger. Chi! An arrow shot the back of his hand from high above. The pistol fell to the ground with a clang. Firefox gritted his teeth and threw away the pistol in his hand. Firefox looked sideways and saw a woman in black with a bow and arrow on the 2nd floor of the side hall. She walked out from behind a pillar. Mika Keto said lightly, "Tie them up." Suzaku held a pair of handcuffs in each hand and easily handcuffed the wrists of the 2 men. "Let's go." Suzaku pushed the 2 men and took them to the basement of the castle. The people who were celebrating in the main hall had no idea what was happening in the side hall. Tomac came late. He was wearing a medieval aristocratic costume with a cold face. The guests in the main hall made way for him and looked at him respectfully. Tomac walked to the center of the main hall. His most trusted assistant, Robert, held up the agreement signed by Barit and announced, "Barit has signed the property transfer agreement. From today on, the Dark Knight family will take over the Ulysses family." Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 256. There was an uproar in the hall. Everyone was shocked, but no one questioned it. Tomac now had the Anya family and the Ulyss family, and they had no ability to compete with him. The merger of the 2 families meant that Tomac's status had risen again, and he had occupied the absolute dominant position in the mafia. A figure walked in from the entrance of the hall. He was a beautiful blonde man with perfect facial features, like a god. He was tall and straight, and he walked towards the hall with steady steps. His movements were elegant, and there was a bright smile on his face. He walked to Tomac's side and said with a smile, "Uncle, congratulations." The serious expression on Tomac's face was swept away and replaced by a warm smile. He opened his arms and said, "Holly, my child, you're back." Holly was the only son of Tomac's elder brother who had passed away. He was also Tomac's only relative by blood. Tomac treated him like his own son. Holly hugged Tomac and said with a smile, "Yes, uncle. I'm back." "Very good, very good." Tomac nodded repeatedly, not minding showing his gentle side in front of everyone. The banquet continued. Tomac put his arm around his nephew's shoulder, and the uncle and nephew chatted happily. Holly said, "Uncle, I heard that Xia and Ashen came to Rome. Where are they now?" Tomac smiled and said, "Shen is in this castle. He's dealing with some things and will be back soon. Xia is in the hospital." Holly was shocked. Xia is in the hospital? Is she sick? It's a long story. In short, Xia is sick. She took Xiao Guai to Rome to give birth, but it's not her who's in the hospital. It's her husband, Bailey Han. Holly seemed to understand and nodded. "So, she's taking care of Bailey Han in the hospital now?" "Yes, and no." Tomac smiled mysteriously. He briefly explained what had happened in the past 2 days and said, Suzaku disguised herself as Xia Xia to lure Xia Xia. We were worried that she would be exposed, so we let Xia Xia hide in the hospital and didn't allow her to go to Bailey Han's ward. Holly suddenly understood and said with a smile, I see. Uncle, that's a good plan. Tomak smiled. This is Shen's idea. Holly smiled and agreed, Shen is indeed very smart. Tomak raised his eyebrow. Now, it's time to inform Xia Xia. She can openly accompany Bailey Han's company. After that, he asked Robert to call Xia Dong. Xia Dong had been in the ward for a day and a half, and she had been tortured for a day and a half. Bailey Han was in the ward downstairs. They were very close, but she couldn't visit him. She could imagine how torturous it was. After learning that Bailey Han was dead and Wolf and the other two were arrested, Xia Dong finally felt relieved. The first thing she did after the call was to run downstairs to visit Bailey Han. Bailey Han was leaning against the headboard, looking much better. Bailey Xiong was sitting beside him. The father and son were whispering something with smiles on their faces. The atmosphere between the two of them was very harmonious. Xia Dong didn't want to disturb them, so she quietly closed the door and left. She sat on the sofa in the corridor and waited for more than 10 minutes. Bailey Xiong came out of the ward. Seeing her, Bailey Xiong asked, Xiao Xia, you're back. Why didn't you come in? Xia Dong stood up and smiled. I saw Dad and Ahan chatting, so I didn't go in to disturb them. Is Ahan asleep? Bailey Xiong smiled. Not yet. Go in quickly. He's been waiting for you for a long time. Xia Dong smiled embarrassedly. Pushing open the door, she suddenly entered a pair of smiling and doting eyes. They had only been apart for 2 days, but it felt like 2 years. She smiled and walked step by step to his bed. His eyes shone brightly as the corners of his lips curled up. Come closer. Xia Dong looked down and walked to his side. He reached out and took her right hand. She sat on the edge of his bed. Bailey Han shifted his body and pulled her into his arms. He hugged her tightly and said gently, Why are you only back now? Xia Dong leaned against this familiar chest. Her heart was full. She hugged his waist with both hands and said softly, Xiao Guai wants me to spend more time with her. They had kept Barit's matter from Bailey Han. They had pretended that Xia Dong had been accompanying Xiao Guai in the castle for the past 2 days because they didn't want him to worry. Bailey Han lowered his head and kissed her cheek. Wifey, I have a lot to say to you. She rubbed against his chest like a cat. Okay, tell me. I'm listening. He tightened his arms and hugged her tightly. His voice was a little low. Wifey, I've actually loved you for a long time. I've also waited for you for a long time. Xia Dong raised her chin and looked at him in confusion. A smile appeared in his eyes. It spread out bit by bit and was as bright as a crystal. He looked into her eyes seriously and said slowly, I fell in love with you 5 years ago. You made me wait for 5 years before you were willing to return to my world. Tell me, how should I punish you? Xia Dong's eyes were filled with surprise. You remember? Silly. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. The soft touch made him want more. His tongue gently pried open her lips. His nimble tongue slid into her sandalwood mouth and entwined with her tongue. His left hand held the back of her head firmly and his right hand held her waist tightly. Her bulging belly was right against his abdomen. Her soft skin rubbed against his and he started to feel restless. Xia Dong felt her entire body heating up. Her pregnant body had become unusually sensitive. She could clearly feel his hot and hard member pressing against her belly. She was so embarrassed that her cheeks flushed red. She closed her eyes tightly, not daring to look at him. Bailey Han made a low sound of from his throat. His kiss became more passionate until his abdomen felt uncomfortable and he was about to lose control. Only then did he let go of her. Their lips were still touching. He gently rubbed against her lips and whispered hoarsely, "Wifey, to be able to meet you in this life is the blessing of 3 lifetimes." Xia Dong's limbs were still a little weak. She threw herself into his arms. Her blushing cheeks leaned against his chest as she listened to his violent heartbeat. Her lips curled up as she whispered, "If you don't leave me, I'll be by your side in life and death." Bailey Han hugged her tightly. His chin was on her hair as he greedily breathed in her fragrance and felt her warmth and her softness. The moment he regained his memories, his love for her seemed to have risen to a new level, a level where their souls were intertwined. He loved her to the bone, and so did she. They had gone through many twists and turns to be together. They would cherish each other even more in the future. It was already past 9 at night. Xia Dong couldn't bear to go home, even though the apartment was very close to the hospital. Bailey Han also couldn't bear to let her go, even though they would meet again the next morning. The two of them spoke at the same time and stopped at the same time. "You first," the two of them spoke at the same time. They looked into each other's eyes and smiled foolishly, like a young man and woman who had just fallen in love. Bailey Han ruffled her hair. "You should go first." Xia Dong grabbed his clothes. "It's late. I should go back." He pursed his lips and smiled. "Stay with me. This bed is very big." Xia Dong seemed to have thought of something and her face turned red. What if someone finds out? The nurse would check on them every night. "What are you afraid of? We're husband and wife." Bailey Han looked calm. He hugged her tightly and said shamelessly, "I want you to stay with me." Xia Dong raised his head and looked at him with a smile. "All right, I'll stay." He gave her a loud kiss on the cheek. She pushed his arm. "Do you want me to help you take a shower? I can do it myself." After Bailey Han said that, his charming eyes suddenly narrowed and his lips curled into a devilish smile. "Okay, you can help me take a shower." Xia Dong found it funny. "Didn't you say you could do it yourself?" He bit her ear and said in a low voice, "We'll take a bath together." She pinched his arm. "You wish. Your body hasn't recovered yet. We can't sleep together for at least a month. Moreover, I'm in the late stages of pregnancy. It's not good for the baby. You'll have to abstain for a few months." Bailey Han sighed. "After this child is born, I don't want any more children." Xia Dong's eyes darkened. After giving birth to the baby, she would have to undergo surgery to remove her uterus. It would be impossible for her to have children in the future even if she wanted to. She leaned in his arms silently. Bailey Han sensed that something was wrong and lifted her chin. "Honey, are you angry?" "I'm just kidding. We'll have as many children as you want, okay?" Xia Dong's heart ached. He was becoming more and more concerned about her emotions. He would notice even if something was wrong. She caressed his handsome face gently and smiled. "Honey, I'm not angry. 4 children is enough. We don't want any more." He took her hand in his and kissed her fingers. "Whatever you say." She smiled. "Honey, let me help you take a shower." His eyes were filled with tenderness. "Okay." Bailey Han could already get up and down the bed by himself. Although he was wearing a hospital gown, he didn't show any signs of weakness. He straightened his back and walked into the bathroom with steady steps. He sat in the bathtub and the warm water flowed down slowly. Xia Dong moved a chair to sit beside the bathtub and wiped his back with a wet towel. From this angle, she could clearly see his head. His hair had been shaved and there was a long scar on the top of his head. Some parts of his head had green roots. She couldn't help but reach out to touch his head. The green roots pricked her palm and her fingers slid to the edge of the scar, but she didn't dare to touch it. Welfare, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 257. Bailey Han chuckled. Do I look ugly right now? Not ugly, very handsome. It's the most handsome hairstyle I've ever seen. Xia Dong's eyes were filled with tears. Bailey Han smiled happily. My wife really knows how to talk. Xia Dong blinked and her tears fell into the bathtub. His back was facing her, so he didn't see it. She retracted her fingers and asked with heartache, Hubby, does it still hurt? It doesn't hurt anymore. Bailey Han suddenly turned his head and found that her face was covered in tears. His heart immediately ached and he reached out his arms to hug her. Silly girl, it doesn't hurt at all. Don't cry. Xia Dong bit her lips and her tears fell. She would never forget the fear in her heart when he was shot. How could it not hurt with such a long scar? Don't cry, good girl. Bailey Han held her face and lowered his head to kiss her, gently kissing away the tears on her face. This kiss that was full of tenderness and sweetness slowly changed. His lips slid to her neck and then slowly down. His palms entered from the hem of her clothes and caressed her body. Her skin was soft and smooth, just like the finest silk, making him unable to put it down. Xia Dong leaned her head on his chest. Her heart was soft, like cotton candy. He kissed her forehead and carried her out of the bathtub. He wanted to send her back to the ward, but she nervously grabbed his arm. Hubby, your injury, he looked at her with a smile. It's all right now. I'll carry you to the bed. Bailey Han carried her back to the bed and the two fell asleep in each other's arms. In the basement of Castle Eunice, the torture had just begun. This basement was originally a torture room. There were all kinds of torture instruments inside, as well as the disgusting smell of blood mixed with rot. Wild Wolf and Firefox were tied to the electric chair by iron shackles. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered, waiting for the god of death to come. Beitangshan slowly walked down the stone steps. His tall and straight body looked even taller under the dim light. His handsome face had a cold expression, and his eyes were like sharp swords as he stared at Wild Wolf and Fox. He said coldly, if you cooperate, I will consider leaving your corpses intact. Wild Wolf snorted, I'm going to die anyway. Why should I be afraid? Mika Keto said eerily, even if you die, you still have your family. Do you want your family to accompany you to hell? Wolf laughed as if he had heard something funny. My family has already been moved to a safe place by my godfather. Mika Keto, you can't threaten me. Really? Since you're not afraid of death, then give it a try. Let's see if I have a way to make your life worse than death. Mika Keto waved his hand casually. Jiang Dao, who was standing behind him, suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Wolf. Wolf stared at Jiang Dao, what are you going to do? Do you know the feeling of an electric current passing through your body? Your body will slowly go numb, your limbs will be frozen, and your heart will gradually stop beating. In the end, your entire body will become a pitch-black skeleton. Jiang Dao's calm voice lingered in the empty basement. It was eerie and eerie, making one's hair stand on end. Jiang Dao pressed the switch of the electric chair expressionlessly. This was a modified electric chair, and the current could be adjusted at will. He first adjusted the current to a medium level. It would be very painful for the human body, but it would not kill them. The two electric chairs were connected at the same time, and a sizzling sound could be heard in the room. Wolf and Firefox restrained themselves at first, clenching their teeth and not moaning. But in the end, the electric current kept increasing, and they couldn't bear it anymore. They howled in pain. The two of them struggled hard, trying to escape from the electric chair, but their hands and feet were firmly tied. They couldn't escape at all. Their painful howls were very shrill. Their bodies were even emitting white smoke, and their clothes were burning. The smell of burnt meat filled the air, and their bodies were being roasted at a speed visible to the naked eye. They were like mutton skewers that were being roasted on a street stove. Ah, it hurts. Wolf and Firefox had begun to roll their eyes, and their bodies were trembling violently as if they were about to suffocate. Jiang Dao suddenly adjusted the electric current to the minimum and said coldly, "How many layers does Godfather have? How can we find him?" The trembling of their bodies lessened, and they could barely breathe. Wolf raised his head, sweating, and stared at Jiang Dao with eyes full of hatred. "Kill me." Jiang Dao sneered, "It's boring to kill you. I haven't had enough fun yet." He suddenly turned his head and looked at Firefox, who was gasping for breath. "What about you? You don't want to talk?" Firefox lowered her head in embarrassment, and her clothes were soaked with sweat. She gritted her teeth and said, "Kill me or cut me up as you wish." Jiang Dao clapped his hands, "So you two are tough guys. Don't worry, I won't let you down." He waved his hand, and his men pushed a small cart from a distance to Jiang Dao. The cart was covered with a white cloth. Jiang Dao suddenly tore off the white cloth and threw it on the ground. The things placed on the cart suddenly came into everyone's sight. Chisels, hammers, daggers, scissors, scalpels, iron hooks, and other tools were placed side by side on the stainless steel plate. The surface of these tools was mottled with a layer of dark red, and it was impossible to tell whether it was rust or blood. Seeing these things, it was not difficult to imagine what kind of torture was waiting for them. Wolf and Firefox, who were already badly mutilated, could not help but shudder. However, since they were going to die anyway, they just had to grit their teeth and hold on, and then they would get through it. The same thought came to their minds. Jiang Dao slowly put on a pair of rubber gloves and said to himself, "I don't like to stain my hands with blood." After putting on the gloves, he put on a rubber apron, picked up a chisel and a hammer from the cart, and slowly walked to Wolf. At this time, he was like a perverted butcher in a horror movie, approaching his prey step by step. Jiang Dao coldly stared at Wolf. "You have one more chance." Wolf clenched his fists tightly and used silence to express his attitude. Jiang Dao pursed his lips and sneered. "Wild Wolf, do you want to know what your brain tastes like after it's fried?" At the same time, a man in a chef's uniform pushed a dining cart into the basement. There was an induction cooker on the dining cart, and there was a frying pan on the stove. The chef acted as if he didn't see anything. He calmly turned on the induction cooker and poured cooking oil into the frying pan. Wolf's body stiffened, and Firefox's eyes were filled with fear. "You'll know soon enough." Jiang Dao's lips curved into a sinister smile. He picked up the chisel with his left hand and put it on Wolf's head. The sharp part of the chisel was close to Wolf's scalp. He held the hammer in his right hand and hit the chisel hard. "Ah!" Wolf howled in pain. Blood flowed down from his forehead and dripped on the floor. He was in so much pain that he struggled violently, wishing he could bite off his tongue. However, before he could carry out his plan, a bodyguard rushed over and stuffed a pair of braces into his mouth, making him beg for death. Firefox trembled all over. Seeing Wolf's situation, she thought of her own fate and almost fainted. Bang! Jiang Dao hit the chisel again, and the chisel drilled into Wolf's skull. He said coldly, "Now I've opened your skull. Next, I'll cut off your skin with a scalpel, cut off a part of your brain, and fry it in the pan." The wild wolf let out a shrill scream as his body struggled violently. The scalpel cut open his scalp bit by bit, just like a watermelon that had its stem twisted open. The scalp on the top of his head was also twisted open by the scalpel, revealing a white, tofu-like thing. Mika Keto was sitting in a chair 20 or 30 meters away from them like a high and mighty emperor. She looked at this cruel and bloody scene calmly without blinking her eyes. Wolf rolled his eyes. Every time he was about to faint, someone would inject him with medicine to keep him awake and suffer inhumane torture. Welfare, Shinwu 799. She paused and glanced sideways at Wolf, who seemed to be in a coma and had a bloody head. Maybe Wolf knows more. He's the most trusted person of Godfather. Jiang Dao said coldly, "Bring me water." A bodyguard brought a basin of cold water. Jiang Dao took the basin, aimed at Wolf's body, and suddenly splashed it. The cold water washed down from his head, and blood mixed with the water flowed all over the ground. Wolf coughed and woke up. The severe pain made his face twist. Hua Hu looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Wolf, give up. Don't be stubborn. Tell them how to contact your godfather." Wild Wolf was already on the verge of death. Jiang Dao's torture game had pushed him to the brink of death. His spirit was on the verge of collapse. Blood was dripping down from his forehead. He opened his mouth and gasped heavily, like a dried fish. "Wolf, give up." Hua Hu's tears fell like rain. The light in Wolf's eyes gradually faded. His whole body was controlled by the pain, and he had no other feelings. He was like a puppet, gradually losing his mind. Jiang Dao looked at him coldly. "How do you usually contact Godfather?" Wolf answered mechanically, "Call his private phone." "What's his private phone number?" Wolf casually reported a string of numbers, and the bodyguard quickly wrote it down. Where else does Godfather live except for the villas in Mountainside East City and Repulse Bay? Wolf seemed to be hypnotized and answered blankly. "There's a villa in the Bailey's Tsang Mountain in the suburbs of the city. Su Yunqian was tied up there last time." "What else?" "That's all I know." Mika Keto raised her hand, and Jiang Dao temporarily stopped asking questions. Mika Keto asked in a low voice, "Godfather kidnapped Su Yunqian, right?" Wolf answered blankly, "Yes." Godfather originally negotiated with Su Yunqian to deal with Xia Dong and Mika Keto together. They pretended to kidnap and rape her, but Godfather hid something. In fact, he killed 3 birds with 1 stone. He also used Su Yunqian. Mika Keto's eyes darkened. "Is there any evidence?" "Yes." Godfather originally planned to kick Su Yunqian out of the picture and expose her in front of everyone. But things changed. Xia Dong left China, so Godfather didn't expose the evidence for the time being. "Where's the evidence?" "It's on my computer. Godfather asked me to take care of it. I'll release it to the public at the right time." "Where's your computer now?" "In a hotel." "Which hotel? What's your room number?" Wild Wolf was like a puppet controlled by someone. He asked and answered, and told everything he knew. Unfortunately, the Godfather was very cautious. Even if it was someone he trusted, he still did not reveal a lot of important information to Wild Wolf. Beitangshan sent someone to Wild Wolf's hotel to retrieve his laptop. He opened the folder and found the evidence that Wild Wolf had mentioned. It was a video, and it looked like it was secretly taken. In the video, Su Yunqian was sitting with a man in a black trench coat. Su Yunqian was facing the camera, and the man's back was facing the camera. She couldn't see his face clearly. But Mika Keto guessed that the man was Godfather. They were talking about how to make the kidnapping look real, what Su Yunqian should say to win the audience's sympathy and trust, and what conditions should she put forward to drive a wedge between Bailey Han and Xia Dong. With this video, they could prove that Su Yunqian and Godfather were in cahoots. They wanted to destroy the relationship between Bailey Han and Xia Dong. Unfortunately, the video was shot very skillfully and did not reveal the Godfather's appearance at all. His voice was also specially processed and could not be distinguished. Therefore, even if it was released to the public, everyone could only recognize Su Yunqian and reflexively put all their attention on her. Beitangshan asked Jiang Dao to copy the video into the USB flash drive. Then, he opened other hidden files on the computer and found other evidence of his Godfather and Wild Wolf's crimes. His Godfather had sent Wild Wolf to kidnap and assassinate people several times, and Wild Wolf had written down every plan clearly and saved the photos of the crime scenes. Jiang Dao also copied all these things to the USB flash drive. One day, these things would be used to bring down Godfather. It was already midnight. Hua Hu raised his head and looked at Beitang Shen. Since you've already gotten what you want, give us a quick death. Mika Keto raised her hand to signal Jiang Dao. Jiang Dao took out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Wolf's forehead. Wolf stared at the muzzle blankly and didn't react. Bang! With a gunshot, a bullet went through the middle of the wolf's forehead. Blood came out and sprayed everywhere. Wolf's body slumped on the electric chair. She glanced at the wolf before slowly closing her eyes. She knew that the god of death was about to descend upon her. Bang! Another gunshot was heard. Firefox also slumped on the electric chair. The entire basement was filled with the strong stench of blood. Then, there was a dead silence. Let's go. Mika Keto suddenly stood up. He didn't even frown in the face of the bloody basement. He walked out expressionlessly. Suzaku followed behind him. They walked out of the basement and walked up the stairs. When they reached the top of the castle, Suzaku exhaled slowly. Frankly speaking, her stomach was still feeling a little uncomfortable. Mika Keto walked in front and she followed behind unhurriedly. When they reached the balcony, he suddenly turned around and stared at her expressionlessly. His thin lips moved and he said coldly, "How do you feel?" Suzaku frowned. "It's disgusting." There was a scrutinizing look in his eyes. "They used to be your companions." Suzaku said impassively, "You don't have to test me. We can't be considered companions. We've only met once. I can only express my sympathy for what they've been through. That's all. Don't you think it's cruel?" Mika Keto's sharp gaze was fixated on her eyes, as though he wanted to see through her organs. "Cruel?" Suzaku sneered. "If you're kind to your enemy, you're being cruel to yourself. Although I don't agree with your methods, I acknowledge your ruthlessness. You don't have to worry that I'll be unfaithful to you because of this." Mika Keto pursed his lips. He realized that this woman was more cold-blooded than he had imagined. She was able to analyze the pros and cons of the matter clearly. Suzaku met his gaze quietly and said calmly, "How long are we going to stand here for? If there's nothing else, I'd like to go back and rest." Mika Keto suddenly remembered that she had pretended to be kidnapped yesterday. She must not have had a good rest last night. She had been in a state of high tension during the day and hadn't had a chance to rest until now. Even a man would feel a little overwhelmed, let alone a woman. For the first time, he treated her as a woman. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 259. Mika Keto said calmly, "It's all right. You can go back." "Okay," Suzaku replied casually and turned to leave. She was dressed in a tight black suit and looked dashing and unrestrained. After the 3 wild wolves were killed, Mika Keto planned to follow up the victory and return to China to deal with his godfather's matter. He went to the castle to say goodbye to Tomac. A handsome blonde man with blue eyes was sitting in the living room with his godfather, talking and laughing. "Shen, you're here. Come here. We're talking about you." Tomac smiled. The blonde man stood up with a bright and sincere smile. "Shen, long time no see. Holly, long time no see." Beitang Shen's lips curled up as he walked towards them with steady steps. Holly opened his arms and the two hugged. Mika Keto raised his eyebrows. "What are you talking about?" Tomac laughed. Holly said, "You're smart. You played a big role in dealing with Barit. That's because Godfather supported me. That's why the plan could be carried out." Mika Keto smiled. "Holly, how are you doing in England?" Holly shrugged. Not bad. I've taken care of those old foxes. Mika Keto patted Holly's shoulder. Those old foxes are all cunning. You're amazing to be able to make them submit to you. There were a few mafia families in England who thought they were far away from the emperor and were disrespectful to Tomac. They even had a lot of disputes with his forces in England, so Tomac sent Holly to England to deal with this matter. Holly grinned and changed the topic. By the way, Shen, I plan to visit Xia Xia and her husband in the hospital. Do you want to come with me? Mika Keto's eyes darkened as she said, I came here to say goodbye to Godfather. I'll go to the hospital to say goodbye to Xia Xia later. Tomac's smile faded. You're going back so soon? Mika Keto nodded. I plan to follow up my victory and uproot the Godfather's forces. That's good too. Be careful. If you need any help, just let me know. I will, Godfather. Thank you for taking care of Xia Xia and Xiao Guai. Why are you being so polite? Don't worry, they're in my hands. I won't let them lose a single hair. Mika Keto smiled. Holly, let's go to the hospital together after I say goodbye to Xiao Guai. Xiao Guai was still living in the castle for the time being. She would be transferred back to the hospital tomorrow. Mika Keto and Holly walked into her room. The little girl was wearing a white mask, a pink hat, and a pink princess dress. She was sitting on the thick carpet and playing with building blocks with the nanny. Uncle Shen, Uncle Holly. When she saw the two of them, Xiao Guai threw away the building blocks in her hands, got up from the ground, and ran over to them. Mika Keto bent down and picked her up. Gigai, did you listen to me and take your medicine and injections? Yes, the nurse pricked my butt with the needle. It hurt so much. I didn't even cry. When Mika Keto and Holly arrived at the hospital, Xia Dong, Bailey Han, and Bailey Xiong were sitting on the sofa and chatting casually. Bailey Han was in good spirits, and his body was recovering very quickly. Holly, you're back. Xia Dong was pleasantly surprised to see Holly. Yeah, I didn't expect the baby in your belly to be so big when I came back. I wanted to hug you, but I couldn't sit down. Holly shrugged helplessly. He wanted to hug her, but her belly pushed him away. Xia Dong laughed. You're going to have another nephew. Don't forget to give him a red packet. I definitely won't forget. Xia Dong and Holly chatted at the side. Bailey Han reached out his hand and looked at Mika Keto sincerely. Thank you for taking care of Xia Xia all this time. Mika Keto paused and reached out to shake his hand. You didn't let me down either. He used his body to take a bullet for Xia Dong, proving that his love for Xia Dong was no less than Mika Keto's. But, Mika Keto pursed his lips and said coldly, if you do something wrong to Xia Xia one day, I will take her away. Bailey Han looked into his eyes calmly. I won't give you a chance. Mika Keto pursed his lips. I'll wait and see. Then, Mika Keto explained why he came. Although Xia Dong couldn't bear to part with him, she didn't ask him to stay. She knew that he came back to China to deal with her godfather. Coincidentally, Bailey Han was also coming back to China, so the two of them could travel together. At noon, everyone had lunch at an elegant restaurant near the hospital. Then, Xia Dong and Bailey Han watched them get into the car and drive to the airport. It's just the two of us again. Xia Dong looked at the car in the distance and suddenly felt empty. Bailey Han put his arm around Xia Dong's waist. Honey, don't be sad. We will be reunited soon. Xia Dong leaned against his chest and said, City A, 8:00 p.m. Yisiki was packing her luggage in the room. In 2 days, the whole family would be going to Sanya for a vacation. She took out her summer clothes and planned to pack them in advance. Suddenly, her cell phone rang. It was a text message. Yisiki looked up at the bedside. It was Lin Shihao's cell phone. He was taking a shower in the bathroom. Her hand froze and her heart clenched nervously. She put down her clothes, walked to the bedside and picked up the cell phone. She had never looked through Lin Shihao's cell phone because she trusted him. But now, she sat on the bed, her heart pounding. She hesitated, her fingers trembling as she held the cell phone. The sound of running water in the bathroom became softer. Lin Shihao would come out of the shower soon. She made up her mind and turned on the cell phone. She easily cracked his password. It was her birthday. She opened her inbox. It was a text message from Bai Meiwei. She didn't open it to read, but the main content of the message was displayed at the bottom. Senior, I want to talk to you. Meisei Bar, 9:30 p.m. Be there or be square. Isiki's fingers suddenly clenched. She felt very conflicted. She looked through the other messages but couldn't find any more from Bai Meiwei. She didn't know if she really didn't send any messages or if Lin Shihao had deleted the messages. The sound of running water stopped. Isiki quickly put the cell phone back on the bedside table. Lin Shihao walked out of the bathroom in a bathrobe. He held a towel in his hand and wiped his hair as he said, "Honey, are you done packing?" "I'm almost done." Isiki put the clothes into the suitcase and tried to make her voice sound calm. "I heard your cell phone ring just now. Check if someone sent you a text message." "Oh, okay." Lin Shihao took the cell phone. Isiki pretended to pack the luggage and secretly glanced at him. She saw his expression change after he turned on his cell phone. She quickly retracted her gaze and zipped up the suitcase. She smiled and asked, "Who's looking for you?" Lin Shihao deleted the text message. He paused and said, "It's little Wang. He's heartbroken and in a bad mood. He's at Meisei Bar and wants me to go over and have a drink with him." Isiki felt as if she had been splashed with a bucket of cold water. Her heart felt cold. Welfare, Songshu 566. Chapter 260. Isiki felt as though she had been splashed with a bucket of cold water. She tried her best to smile as though nothing had happened. "Xiao Wang is your colleague. It's not good for him to be out drinking alone at this hour. You'd better give him a call and persuade him to go home." Lin Shihao thought for a moment and said, "I'd better go over and take a look." He guessed that Bai Meiwei wanted to talk to him about the child, so he wanted to know what she was thinking. Isiki had a smile on her face, but her heart was bleeding. Okay. Be careful on the road." She walked him to the door. When she heard the door close, she leaned against the wall and felt like she was going to give in. After a while, she dug her nails into her palms and tried to encourage herself. "Isiki, you can't be so useless. You should go and see what they're talking about instead of staying here and wallowing in self-pity." Isiki's eyes shone with determination. She suddenly stood up and strode back to her room. She changed her clothes, grabbed Xia Dong's car keys, and took the elevator downstairs. When she came out of the main entrance of the building, she happened to see Lin Shihao's car drive out of the neighborhood. She quickly ran into the garage and drove Xia Dong's car out. Under the night sky, she followed Lin Shihao's car from a distance. Meisei Bar. In the gentle dance music, pairs of men and women hugged each other and danced to the music. Lin Shihao walked into the bar. After he found Bai Meiwei, she pulled him over to sit beside her. He discreetly shifted his butt away from her. The private room in the hall was semi-open. A circular leather sofa surrounded the wall. As long as the person next to it stood up, they would be able to see every movement of the person in the private room. Everyone went to the bar to pass the time and rarely peeked into other people's privacy. So when Isiki climbed onto the sofa and peeked in front, she was very eye-catching. It was then that Xiao Tiansheng noticed her. Xiao Tiansheng sat at the bar and inadvertently looked up. He saw Isiki sprawled on the sofa, staring at a spot 2 rooms away from her. He quickly recognized her and knew that she was Xia Dong's good friend. He curiously followed her line of sight and saw a man and a woman sitting in the same row with their backs to Yisiki. From his point of view, the man and woman were facing him. He raised his eyebrows and put down his wine glass as if possessed. He looked at Yisiki and the others from afar and guessed that this was a melodramatic play of a wife catching her husband cheating on her with a mistress. Lin Shihao glanced at the silent Bai Meiwei. "Meiwei, have you thought about the child?" Bai Meiwei nodded her head. "I've already thought it through. I'll follow your advice and give up on the child. But, you have to promise me one thing." Lin Shihao said in a low voice, "Tell me." Bai Meiwei tilted her head to look at him. Her eyes were filled with complex emotions as she slowly said, "Senior, give me a month's time. Within this month, you have to go on 5 dates with me. After a month, I will abort this child." Lin Shihao said, "I can give you a month, but I can't go on dates with you." Bai Meiwei grabbed his arm as tears welled up in her eyes. "Senior, can't you take pity on my sincerity and satisfy my fantasies?" "Meiwei, I'm sorry. I already have a wife. I can't do anything to let her down." Lin Shihao held her hand and tried to remove it from his arm. "No, senior," Bai Meiwei suddenly hugged him tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she said hoarsely, "Senior, you've already done something to let sister-in-law down, haven't you? What's one more? Besides, I'm only asking you to go on dates with me. I won't do anything else. It's just 5 times. After 5 times, I'll abort the child and won't pester you anymore." Her words pierced Lin Shihao's heart like a needle. His hands and feet instantly turned cold. She leaned her head against his chest and said in a low voice, "Senior, it's true. I'm not lying to you. After a month, I'll abort the child. Just give me 5 dates." Her tears flowed onto his clothes. He couldn't help but feel guilty when he saw her heartbroken expression. He had let her down. If he hadn't been drunk and mistook her for Siki, they wouldn't have ended up in this situation. 5 times. Only 5 times. "Senior, I beg you." Her pleading voice traveled into his ears. He couldn't help but clench his fists and slowly close his eyes. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes. His voice was low and hoarse as he said, "Okay, I promise you. After a month, you have to have the operation." "I'll definitely have the operation." Bai Meiwei lifted her chin and smiled through her tears. She looked pitiful, but Lin Shihao wasn't in the mood to admire her. His brows were deeply furrowed. Bai Meiwei took out 2 plane tickets from her handbag. "Senior, I heard that you've applied for a holiday. Coincidentally, I've also applied for a holiday. Let's go to Sanya for a holiday, okay?" Lin Shihao pushed her away from him. His expression was a little ugly. "Why do you want to go to Sanya?" Bai Meiwei pulled out a tissue to wipe her tears and said gently, "A 4-day holiday is too short. There's not enough time to go overseas, so I've chosen to travel within the country. It's too cold in the north and Sanya's warmer climate. Isn't it just right?" Lin Shihao pinched his brows. "Siki and I plan to go to Sanya this time. Let's postpone our date." Bai Meiwei was stunned. Then she revealed a bitter smile. "I understand. Then we'll start our date when you come back from Sanya." She put the plane tickets back into her handbag. Lin Shihao grunted softly. "It's getting late. I should go back." He was about to get up when Bai Meiwei grabbed his arm and said anxiously, "Senior, stay with me for a while. Just half an hour, okay?" Lin Shihao pursed his lips tightly. He was silent for a long time before he sat down stiffly. Yisiki slowly slid down from the sofa and sat down dejectedly. Her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She had seen her own husband holding another woman in his arms with her own eyes. Although she was too far away to hear their conversation, his actions had deeply hurt her. She covered her mouth and sobbed bitterly. Because she was trying to suppress her own voice, her shoulders shook violently and her chest rose and fell rapidly. She looked so pitiful that Xiao Tiansheng couldn't help bending over to pull out a tissue and handed it to her. He had originally just wanted to watch the show. Unexpectedly, the more he watched, the more excited he became. He actually walked over to her side. A large hand holding a tissue suddenly appeared in her line of sight. Yisiki didn't even raise her head as she took the tissue from the hand and wiped her tears. However, the more she wiped, the more her tears flowed. Like an open faucet, she couldn't dry them no matter how hard she tried. Xiao Tiansheng looked at her sorry figure as she lowered her head and wiped her tears. He simply sat down beside her and stuffed the entire box of tissues into her hands. He said calmly, "I'll give you this box of tissues. If it's still not enough, I'll get someone to bring you more." Yisiki pulled out more than 10 tissues and covered her mouth tightly. Her tears flowed silently and her shoulders shook even more violently. Xiao Tiansheng narrowed his eyes as he looked at this woman. He remembered very clearly the first time he saw her. She was like a valiant and formidable heroine who rushed in front of Bailey Han and slapped him in the face. At that time, she was very dazzling. Like a flame, she was full of love. But now, she was heartbroken and was suppressing her heartache. This strong contrast made Xiao Tiansheng feel a little uncomfortable. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and dragged her up from the sofa. She was caught off guard and the box in her arms fell to the ground. She looked up with tears in her eyes and saw the tall and straight stranger in front of her. With a sobbing tone, she questioned, "What are you doing?" Xiao Tiansheng frowned and said in a deep voice, "Yisiki, show your power and slap that adulterous couple." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She struggled desperately as if she had gone crazy. "Let go of me. Don't meddle in my affairs. I don't even know you." Xiao Tiansheng grabbed her shoulders with both hands and stared coldly into her eyes. "Yisiki, you don't know me, but I know you. You idiot. Instead of crying here, why don't you go up and question your husband? I don't want you to meddle in my affairs. Let go of me." Yisiki struggled with all her might. Her tears had stopped flowing and she kicked Xiao Tiansheng angrily. "I told you to let go." Xiao Tiansheng did not let go. His hands were like iron pincers as he held her shoulders tightly. Chapter 261. Xiao Tiansheng forcefully shoved the business card into her hand and raised his eyebrows. "It looks like you really don't remember me. I'm a friend of Bailey Han and you're Xiaodong's friend. We're considered friends indirectly. Just take it that I'm being kind and want to do good deeds." Yisiki frowned and looked at him seriously. Suddenly, she felt that he looked familiar. After thinking about it carefully, she realized that she had indeed seen him before. Her expression softened a little. She raised her hand to look at his business card. This business card was a little too unique. There was no title on it, only a name and a phone number. Xiao Tiansheng. His name. Xiao Tiansheng chuckled. "I wouldn't give my business card to just anyone. You should be grateful for your good luck." Yisiki's mouth twitched. "Thank you." She took her handbag and put the business card inside. "I'm leaving," she said. Xiao Tiansheng pointed behind him. "Don't you want to see what else they're up to?" Yisiki froze. She dug her nails into her palms. "No need. That's good too. Call me if you have any problems. I can be your marriage expert for free." A sincere smile appeared on Xiao Tiansheng's face. For him, this was really not easy. It was rare for him to be serious. "Okay, I got it." Isiki waved her hand casually. She didn't think that she would ask this unreliable man for advice on marriage. She didn't dare to look at the private room behind her. She took her handbag and hurriedly left Charming Club. Xiao Tiansheng looked at her back and chuckled. Isiki sat in the car and looked at the brightly lit streets. She had no one to complain to. In the past, if she had any problems, she could still look for Xia Dong. But now that Xia Dong was abroad, she realized that no one could listen to her bitterness. Isiki slumped back in her seat and looked at the endless stream of cars outside the window. She had the urge to get drunk. However, she was too rational and thought about too many things. For example, if she got drunk, how would she go home? How was she going to explain this to Lin Shihao? She let out a long sigh and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. She stepped on the accelerator and drove in the direction of home. In the supermarket in the neighborhood, she bought a bottle of beer. She and Lin Shihao didn't drink much. There wasn't even a drop of alcohol in the house. Isiki sat on the sofa, opened a can of beer, and gulped it down. After drinking 2 cans, she leaned on the sofa and fell asleep. Lin Shihao opened the door to the living room and smelled the strong scent of alcohol. He saw his wife curled up on the sofa and sleeping soundly. There were 2 empty beer cans by her feet and a can of beer by her side. He frowned and bent down to carry her from the sofa. She clung to him tightly like an octopus and murmured, "Hubby. Don't leave me behind." Lin Shihao's body froze. He tightened his arms and hugged her tightly. Tears almost flowed out of his eyes. His voice was low and hoarse. "Honey, I won't leave you behind. Never." It was as if she had heard his promise. She lay in his arms and fell asleep peacefully. Lin Shihao wanted to put her on the bed, but her hands were too tight. In order not to wake her up, he didn't even take off his jacket and lay down with her. He kicked off his shoes, pulled the blanket over them and hugged her tightly in his arms. Isiki wanted to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. She struggled to get up in a daze. Lin Shihao woke up with a start and turned on the bedside lamp. "Honey, what's wrong?" Isiki was still drunk. She looked at him with drunken eyes and pouted. "Hubby, I want to go to the bathroom. I'll help you there." Lin Shihao got out of bed and helped her down from the bed. She staggered and almost fell down several times. Lin Shihao sighed, and simply carried her up. After carrying her into the bathroom, he placed her on the toilet. She did not even take off her pants, and from the looks of it, she wanted to settle it immediately. He quickly said, "Wife, wait a moment." "Why?" She looked up in confusion. "I can't hold it in anymore." "Silly, take off your pants first." Lin Shihao helped her up from the toilet. He held her waist with one hand and took off her pajama pants with the other. He then took off her underwear and helped her sit on the toilet again. The sound of water splashing could be heard. She finally got rid of her physiological problem and a comfortable expression appeared on her face. Lin Shihao stood by her side and watched her. Seeing her stand up shakily, he quickly held her arm and helped her put on her pants with one hand. He then pressed the flush button and bent down to pick her up. She naturally reached out and hooked her arms around his neck and leaned her head on his chest. When they returned to the bedroom, she fell asleep again. Lin Shihao looked at the little woman lying in his arms and sleeping peacefully. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. He hesitated for a long time about Bai Meiwei's pregnancy, but he still didn't dare to tell her. He knew that she was a person who was obsessed with emotional cleanliness. His body had already betrayed her once. If he let her know that Bai Meiwei was pregnant again, he didn't know what she would do. "Honey, I'm sorry. I hid it from you because I wanted us to start over." He buried his head in her neck and murmured, "Honey, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." Something sparkling and translucent fell from his eyes and landed on her neck. It rolled down her neck and into her pajamas. She unconsciously replied with an "N" and hugged him even tighter. The sun shone through the curtains. Isiki frowned and impatiently turned over. Her arms happened to be supporting Lin Shihao's chest. Her muddle-headed mind gradually cleared up. She slowly opened her eyes and saw that handsome and familiar face. He was sleeping soundly with his eyes closed and a green stubble on his chin. His right hand was under her head and his left hand was still on her waist. They hadn't slept in the same bed in such an intimate position in a long time. Isiki stared at his handsome face, her heart filled with mixed feelings. In the end, she slowly reached out her hand, stroked his cheek, and said in a low voice, "Hubby, I'll give you one more chance." She gently pushed his hand away from her waist and quietly got out of his arms. When she heard the sound of the toilet in the bathroom, she suddenly quivered and remembered that she had groggily gotten out of bed in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Even her pants seemed to have been taken off by Lin Shihao. Her face instantly heated up. Although they had been husband and wife for a long time, this was the first time something so awkward had happened. After washing up, her face was still a little hot when she came out of the bathroom. Lin Shihao had also woken up. He shook his sore right arm and asked, "Honey, you were drunk last night. Are you feeling better now?" "Yeah, I'm fine now." Her gaze was erratic. "What's wrong? Your face is red. Are you having a fever?" Lin Shihao held her shoulders and raised his right hand to touch her forehead. "I'm fine." She avoided his hand and smiled awkwardly. "Last night, you carried me to the bathroom, right?" Lin Shihao laughed and ruffled her hair. "You were too drunk and stumbled when you walked. If I hadn't carried you in, I was worried that you would have fallen into the toilet." She coughed twice. "You have to quickly forget what happened last night." "Why?" He raised his eyebrows in confusion. Because you helped me take off my pants." Most importantly, he heard her shushing. Isiki was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. His lips curled into a mischievous smile. "I've helped you take off your pants many times, don't say any more." Isiki reached out to cover his mouth. Her face was red as she stammered, "In any case, you have to quickly forget it." His eyes were full of smiles. They had been married for so many years, but she was still easily embarrassed. He held her hand and took it away from his mouth. He said gently, "I won't forget. I'll treasure everything about you in my mind. When we're old, I'll tell you everything." His eyes were full of tenderness and his expression was serious. He didn't look like he was joking at all. She sniffled and tears welled up in her eyes. Slowly, she hugged him. He also reached out his arms and hugged her tightly. "Wifey, do you still remember what I said to you on our wedding night?" "Yes, I remember everything." Isiki's tears fell. She bit her lip and asked in a choked voice, "Hubby, can we really do this?" "Yes, we definitely can. Trust me." Lin Shihao held her cheeks and looked into her eyes seriously. He said word by word, "In this lifetime, I'll only love you." If there was a person who could tolerate your shortcomings, who could remind you that there were vegetable leaves on your teeth without feeling embarrassed, who could laugh at your indecent actions, then he truly loved you. Isiki hugged the man who truly loved her, and her tears flowed uncontrollably. "Don't cry. Be good." Lin Shihao carefully wiped the tears from her face and said gently, "Wifey, rest for a while more. I'll make breakfast." Isiki smiled with tears in her eyes. "I want to eat fried eggs. Nyonyo loves sandwiches." "I know." He smiled and kissed her cheek. "Be good. Rest for a while more. I'll call you when it's ready." She nodded obediently. Isiki didn't do as he said and rest for a while more. Instead, she changed into her home clothes and stood not far from the kitchen to watch him make breakfast. He had an apron around his waist and was busy in the kitchen. There was a faint smile on his face, and he was very easygoing and gentle. Nyo was wearing little bunny pajamas. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and walked over. She said in surprise, "Hey, Daddy is making breakfast today." Yisiki smiled and hugged her daughter. Lin Shihao heard the sound and turned to look. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. She wished that time would stop at this moment, the happy moment of their family of 3. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 262. After Mika Keto returned to China, the first thing he did was to look for his godfather. When he was in Rome, he had sent his men to search for his godfather's villas, but they did not find him. He guessed that his godfather must have other places to stay. Even his most trusted wolf does not know where he is. Mika Keto used Wolf's number to call his godfather's private number. Jiang Dao sat behind a pile of equipment and tried to trace the signal. The phone rang for a long time before it finally got through. His godfather's low voice came into his ears. "Wolf, how is it going?" "It's me, Mika Keto." The godfather paused. "Wolf is dead?" Mika Keto said lightly. "They are all dead. What are you going to do?" "Take revenge on you." Beep, beep. The phone was hung up. Mika Keto looked up at Jiang Dao. "How is it? Did you find his address?" "Yes. He is in a bar outside the 3rd Ring Road." Jiang Dao turned his laptop over and saw a red dot on the map. "Track him immediately," Mika Keto ordered. Several groups of people rushed to the godfather's location. But when they arrived at the bar, they couldn't find any trace of the godfather. Instead, they found the godfather's phone in a trash can in a private room of the bar. It was the phone he used to talk to Beitang Shen. Jiang Dao called the manager of the bar over and asked about the guest in the private room. The manager said, "This guest is very unfamiliar. He is wearing a black windbreaker and black sunglasses. He seems to be waiting for someone." Jiang Dao said, "Show me the CCTV footage in the corridor." "Okay. Please wait a moment." The manager asked someone to show him the CCTV footage. Jiang Dao saw the man in the black windbreaker in the video. Although he could not see the man's face, his figure was the same as his godfather's. Jiang Dao looked at the time when the man left. It was right after he hung up the phone. He asked, "Where did this man go after he left the bar?" "I don't know. I will ask the staff. Maybe someone saw him." A few minutes later, the manager came back and said that a waiter saw the godfather driving a red Porsche Cayenne toward Binjiang South Road after he left the bar. "What's the license plate number?" He didn't see it clearly. Jiang Dao sent people to chase after them from Binjiang South Road. The surveillance cameras installed along the road recorded everything and fed it back to Mika Keto. The top hackers of Senku spent the whole afternoon hacking into the internal system of City A's Transportation Bureau and copied the surveillance footage along Binjiang South Road. In the end, when he checked the video, he found that there was no red Porsche Cayenne as the waiter had mentioned. Mika Keto tapped the table with her slender fingers. Godfather might have changed cars on the way. Maybe the Porsche Cayenne is a breakthrough. Jiang Dao, investigate the Porsche 4S stores and the information of their customers. During the investigation, Jiang Dao found that his godfather had purchased the car under the name of Shengguan Ao half a year ago. He did not leave his address or phone number, but there were 2 maintenance records. One was scratching the door, and the other was breaking the rear-view mirror. According to the customer service staff at the reception, a young lady had driven the car over when the rear-view mirror was broken. She looked sweet and cute when she smiled, so he had a deep impression of her. Jiang Dao pondered for a while, then took out Su Xingchen's photo and asked the customer service staff, is this the girl who drove the car? The customer service staff was a handsome young man. He looked at the photo carefully and nodded. Yes, it's her. She even called me brother affectionately. Jiang Dao's mouth twitched. This was something that Su Xingchen would do. Jiang Dao reported the results of the investigation to Mika Kito and asked, "Boss, what should we do now?" Mika Kito's eyes flickered. His godfather was Su Xingchen's godfather, and they were very close. They were so close that Su Xingchen drove his godfather's car out casually and then drove it to the 4S store for maintenance after it was broken. He was a little curious if his godfather would appear if something happened to Su Xingchen. Mika Kito waved his hand, and Jiang Dao bowed to him. He whispered a few words to Jiang Dao, and Jiang Dao nodded. While dealing with his godfather, Mika Kito did not forget about the other person who persecuted Xia Dong, Su Yunxian. He wanted Su Yunxian's reputation to be ruined. This was the best punishment for her. After Bailey Han went abroad to look for Xia Dong, Su Yunxian's illness continued to fluctuate. Sometimes she was sober, sometimes she was obsessed, and when she was not in a good mental state, she would make a fuss and say that she wanted to see Bailey Han. Su Yunxian's parents were already mentally and physically exhausted. When they could not persuade Su Yunxian, they could only ask old madam for help. Now, old madam was the only person who could persuade Su Yunxian. On the second day after Mika Kito returned to China, Bailey's family first received a CD. At that time, only old madam and Bai Jinxiu were at home. After watching the content of the video, they were shocked for a long time. Old madam's lips trembled. After a while, she pointed at Su Yunxian in the CD and spat out a few words fiercely, "She's worse than a beast." Bai Jinxiu slumped on the sofa and shook her head in disbelief. This can't be true. How could Yunxian do such a thing? Old madam took a long time to suppress the anger in her chest. She stamped the floor with her cane and said, "I'm going to ask her now. What did Bailey's family do to wrong her? Why did she do such a vicious thing?" Old madam was decisive. She stood up and walked out with her cane. "Butler, prepare the car." Mom, calm down." Bai Jinxiu quickly caught up with her and held her arm. We still don't know whether this video is true or not. Isn't it too hasty to make trouble for the Su family with great fanfare? Old Madame Fu's stubborn temper flared up. She stiffened her neck and said angrily, "Jinxiu, the people who were framed by them are your biological son and your daughter-in-law who has already given birth to 3 grandsons for you. No matter how much you side with outsiders, you can't just watch them hurt them." "Mom, that's not what I meant. I meant to find out the truth of the matter first. After we find the evidence, we'll get even with them. I'm telling you, I believe that what's in this video is true." Old Madam snorted. "If you think that Su Yunxian is a simple person, then you're wrong. She drugged Ahan's wine and pretended that they had sex. She even pretended to be pregnant to threaten Ahan to marry her. She even pushed Xiao Yi down the stairs. I didn't want to argue with her because of our old friendship, but I didn't expect her to go overboard." Bai Jinxiu's eyes widened. She stammered, "What? Drugged? Pregnant? Why didn't I know about these things? I kept these things from you. I wanted to save some face for Su Yunxian, but I didn't expect her to be so vicious. Let's go. Cut the crap. I'm going to the hospital to get even with her and expose her tricks." Old Madam dragged Bai Jinxiu's arm and walked out. Bai Jinxiu was in a state of shock and almost lost the ability to think. She obediently followed her into the car. The driver drove them to the hospital where Su Yunxian was. Mrs. Su was taking care of her in the ward. When she saw Old Madam and Bai Jinxiu, she quickly stood up and smiled. "Auntie, Jinxiu, you're here." Su Yunxian seemed to be in good spirits today. Her complexion was good, and she even had a faint smile on her face. She stood up and greeted, "Grandma, Auntie." Old Madam's face darkened. She slammed the door of the ward and threw the CD in her hand on the table. She said coldly, "Huilan, look at the good daughter you raised. What did the Bailey family do to the Su family? Your good daughter has to do this to us." Su Yunxian seemed to be frightened. She grabbed Mrs. Su's arm with both hands and carefully hid beside her. Mrs. Su held her daughter's hand and said hurriedly, "Auntie, what's wrong? Is there a misunderstanding?" "Humph, take a look at this CD first." Old Madam angrily sat on the sofa and pointed at the CD with her cane. Mrs. Su was confused. She wanted to say something to calm Old Madam down, but she didn't know where to start. She could only put the CD into the CD player and turn on the TV with the remote control. A man and a woman appeared on the screen. The woman was facing the camera. She was Su Yunxian. The man's face couldn't be seen clearly because his back was to the camera. Su Yunxian said, "Put on a good show in front of everyone. I'm going to use the pressure of the public opinion to force them to do something." The man asked, "How do you do it?" She had a smile on her face, but the words she said were hair-raising. "You're the kidnapper. You put forward the conditions. Say that Bailey Han and Xia Dong have to divorce within 3 days and let Xia Dong replace me. If they don't, you'll rape me in front of the whole country. How's that? Isn't it exciting?" The man said, "It is. However, Bailey Han won't agree to let Xia Dong replace you." She pursed her lips. "Of course I'm not stupid enough to say that I'll let Xia Dong replace me. I'll just say that I'll let Xia Dong come and take me home. As for what happens after that, isn't it all in your hands? What if they don't want a divorce?" She sneered. "Then we'll really put on a show of rape and let all the reporters witness it with their own eyes. We'll let it spread widely on the internet. Then, we'll hire a group of people on the internet to lead the public opinion and push all the blame onto Xia Dong and Bailey Han. In the face of such strong pressure, won't they feel guilty?" The man nodded affirmatively. "Yes." She raised her eyebrows proudly. "That's right. I was raped and something so tragic happened. My mental state will definitely suffer a huge blow. I might even have a split personality and become a mental patient. When that happens, do you think Bailey Han will take good care of me out of guilt?" "Yes. Xia Dong will be jealous because of this. The two of them will argue because of this. If it gets serious, they might even separate and get a divorce. Once Xia Dong leaves Bailey's house, you can carry out your plan." The conversation ended here. It was probably deliberately cut off by the person filming, so they didn't know what the man in black was planning to do. However, they could guess that it was definitely not something good. Add Songshu 566. Chapter 263. When Su Yunxian heard the first sentence she said in the video, she knew that something bad was going to happen. Many thoughts flashed through her mind. Her godfather must have asked someone to film this CD, and the purpose was to put her to death. Damn it, she didn't pay more attention at that time. Now that the truth was exposed, what should she do? From the beginning to the end, she had been thinking about this problem. Her heart was anxious, but she still had a very calm expression on her face, as if she was in a trance. Bang, the old madam slammed the table and said angrily, "Huilan, you've seen the contents of the CD. What else do you have to say?" Mrs. Su couldn't believe her eyes. Her daughter was kidnapped on purpose? Deliberately pretending to be crazy? This was simply an Oriental night. "Auntie, I don't believe it. This CD must be forged by someone else. Yunxian wouldn't do such a thing." "Okay, since you think the CD is fake, then we'll find someone who knows the technology to analyze it and see if it's fake." The old madam immediately called the police chief and asked him to arrange a technician to help verify the authenticity of the CD. The technician said that it would take a day to analyze it and then took the CD away. The old madam glared at Su Yunxian angrily. Su Yunxian acted as if nothing had happened and smiled innocently. "Grandma, what's wrong? Who made you angry?" "Su Yunxian, don't pretend any more." Old madam was so angry at her innocent smile that she vomited blood. She wanted to tear her face apart. "Mommy, I'm scared. Why is Grandma so fierce?" Su Yunxian buried her head in Mrs. Su's arms and trembled. Mrs. Su gritted her teeth and said, "Auntie, the matter hasn't been investigated yet. Don't you think it's a bit too much to accuse Yunxian rashly?" The old madam was so angry that her chest rose and fell rapidly. Bai Jinxiu quickly patted her back and whispered, "Mom, calm down. All right, then we'll wait for the police to confirm that the disc is real before we discuss this matter. At that time, you must give us an explanation." The old madam angrily threw down these words and walked away with the help of her walking stick. Bai Jinxiu glanced at Su Yunxian with a complicated expression and hurriedly left with the old madam. After they left, Mrs. Su Yunxian was stunned for a long time. Then, she turned to look at Su Yunxian, who was hugging her arm, and asked slowly, "Yunxian, is what was recorded in the CD true? Are you really lying to us?" Su Yunxian tilted her head, looking innocent. "Mommy, what are you talking about? I don't understand. In the video we just watched, you were talking to a man in black. You said that you were pretending to be kidnapped and mentally ill. Is that true?" Mrs. Su grabbed Su Yunxian's wrist nervously and asked in a trembling voice. Su Yunxian looked pained. "Mommy, you're hurting me." Mrs. Su loosened her grip. "Yunxian, tell me, is it true?" Su Yunxian pointed at the TV. "Are you talking about the two people in the TV just now? I don't know them at all." Mrs. Su looked at her seriously. Her daughter had a puzzled expression on her face. Her beautiful eyes were clear and pure. Mrs. Su stared at her for a moment, unable to believe that her daughter would lie. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Su Yunxian carefully tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Are you angry with me?" Mrs. Su's eyes reddened and she held back her tears. "No, Mommy isn't angry." She hugged Su Yunxian tightly and whispered, "My daughter, you're already so pitiful. Why would someone want to harm you? Mommy, don't be like this. I'm so scared." Su Yunxian's voice sounded so pitiful and delicate. Mrs. Su's heart was about to break. She patted her back. "Baby, don't be afraid. Mommy's here. Mommy won't let anyone hurt you." Mrs. Su returned to the old mansion in a huff. She felt so sullen that she didn't even want to eat dinner. She sat in her room and sulked. She sat beside the old master's wheelchair and held his hand. She was indignant. "Old man, that Su Yunxian, why is she so evil? I'm so angry." Mr. Su listened to her complaints in silence. His old eyes were cloudy and there wasn't a trace of life in them. After complaining for a while, Mrs. Su began to feel sad again. She sighed deeply. "Back then, I thought that Xia Dong wasn't good enough and kept stopping her from being with Ahan. Instead, I tried to matchmake Ahan and Su Yunxian. In the end, it turned out that I was really blind and fell for an ingrate. Old man, I feel so bad. When I think about how Xia Dong suffered back then, I feel so guilty." As she spoke, tears fell from Mrs. Su's eyes. She choked and said, "Now that she has that kind of illness, I don't know if she can make it. Tell me, why is this child's life so hard?" Mr. Su didn't say anything. He suddenly reached out his hand and slowly placed it on the back of Mrs. Su's hand. He pressed it gently. Mrs. Su turned her gaze and looked at their overlapping hands. His hand was like a withered tree's bark. It was covered with wrinkles and perfectly covered her hand. Mrs. Sue's tears fell like rain. She hugged him tightly. "Old man, you still want to shelter me from the wind and rain, right?" When they were young, Mr. Sue would always place his hand on the back of her hand whenever they were in trouble. Their fingers would interlock and he would say, "Don't be afraid. I'll shelter you from the wind and rain." These words had accompanied her for a whole 65 years until Mr. Sue fell ill and couldn't express himself anymore. He couldn't recognize them anymore. The old master let out a muffled sound from his throat, as if he was agreeing with what she said. Mrs. Sue trembled and rubbed her face against his. She choked and said, "Old man, if there's an afterlife, let's be husband and wife again. When that time comes, it'll be my turn to shelter you from the wind and rain." Although Mr. Sue's eyes were still dull, the corners of his lips slowly curled up. After venting her emotions, Mrs. Sue felt much better. She wiped her tears and changed into a new set of clothes. She patted the back of Mr. Sue's hand and said, "Let's go downstairs and eat. I don't want my son and daughter-in-law to worry." The butler had been waiting at the door for a long time. When he saw Mrs. Sue open the door, he hurriedly said, "Mrs. Sue, you should eat something. Don't starve yourself." Mrs. Sue nodded. "Butler, help me push Mr. Sue downstairs." The family was waiting in the dining room. When they saw Mrs. Sue and the others coming downstairs, they immediately smiled. Bailey Jing came up and hugged Mrs. Sue's arm. She said, "Grandma, I made your favorite Westlake vinegar fish today." Mrs. Sue smiled and said, "Xiao Jing, are you used to working in your brother's company?" Bailey Jing looked bitter. "Grandma, can we not talk about such a heavy topic when we're eating?" Bailey Xiong laughed. "Child, didn't you just boast that you've mastered the work and know how to operate it? Isn't that to make Daddy and Mommy happy? How would I dare to make Grandma happy? Grandma, don't you think so?" Bailey Jing helped Mrs. Sue to sit at the head of the table and acted coquettishly. Mrs. Sue tapped her forehead with her finger. "You little monkey, if you don't understand something, you should ask your father. Don't cause any trouble. Otherwise, let's see how your brother will deal with you when he comes back." I know. Grandma, Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao are still watching. You have to leave me some dignity as an elder." Bailey Jing scooped a bowl of soup and placed it in front of Mrs. Sue. Mrs. Sue smiled and shook her head. "You're too nosy." With Bailey Jing's jesting, the atmosphere at the dining table became much livelier. After the meal, Mrs. Sue asked someone to push old Master Gu to the garden outside for a walk while she went upstairs to rest. After sitting on the sofa for a while, someone knocked on the door. It was Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao. Mrs. Sue smiled and waved her hand. "Come over and sit next to Great-Grandma." Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao sat on either side of Mrs. Sue with mysterious smiles on their faces. Mrs. Sue stroked their heads and said gently, "Xiao Bao, is something the matter?" Xiao Bao winked at Xiao Yi. "You're the eldest. You tell them." Xiao Yi sighed maturely. "Eldest is always bullied." Xiao Bao made a funny face and looked extremely cute. Mrs. Sue was amused by them and couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Yi said, "Great-Grandma, we heard that you and Grandma watched a video and knew that Su Yunxian is a bad woman. However, we don't have enough evidence and can't accuse her. We have something to give you." As he spoke, he took out a recording pen from his pocket and placed it in Mrs. Sue's hand. "Great-Grandma, there's a conversation recorded in here. After you listen to it, you'll understand that what was recorded in the CD is true. Su Yunxian is really a disgusting bad woman." Mrs. Sue's expression became serious. She didn't ask any questions and directly opened the recording pen. It was Su Yunxian talking to a strange man on the phone. After listening to the recording, Mrs. Sue broke out in cold sweat. Su Yunxian actually convinced her godfather to use the power of the mafia to deal with Xia Dong. Then, Ahan's head injury was also caused by her. Mrs. Su was furious to the extreme. Her whole body was trembling. It was as if there was a volcano in her heart that was emitting flames and lava. It was as if she was going to be burned to ashes. Xiao Bao puffed up his cheeks and said, "Great-grandma, don't be angry. The most important thing now is to expose Su Yunxian's true colors." Although Mr. Su had once said not to act rashly, Uncle Shen had already dug out the malignant tumor, Barit, and was dealing with Mr. Su. In that case, Su Yunxian was nothing to be afraid of. Mrs. Su nodded. Xiao Bao is right. We must expose this evil woman's ugly face. Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 264. After Mrs. Su left, Su Yunxian frowned and paced back and forth in the ward, trying to think of a way to solve the crisis in front of her. She clenched her slender fingers tightly. Suddenly, her eyes turned cold. She walked quickly to the phone and dialed her godfather's number. 2 minutes later, her godfather called back. Su Yunxian suppressed her anger. "Shangguan Ao, you bastard. Why did you secretly film me and mail the video to the Bailey's family?" Her godfather was silent for a moment. "It wasn't me. If it wasn't you, who else could it be?" Su Yunxian was about to go crazy. "I did secretly film you, but I didn't send it to the Bailey's family." Her godfather paused and continued. "Our plan failed. My men were all killed in Rome. It must be Mika Kito's doing." "It really wasn't you?" "I'm sure. Mika Kito is now looking for my whereabouts. I'm a victim, just like you." Su Yunxian's eyes were filled with deep hatred. "Mika Kito, you win." After hanging up the phone, she leaned back on the sofa and stared at the ceiling. After thinking for a long time, she reached out and picked up the phone. The phone rang for a long time, but no one answered. She angrily hung up the phone. After 2 minutes, she persistently dialed a string of numbers again. After a while, a man's half-awake voice came from the phone. He said in English, "Hello, who is this?" Su Yunxian took a deep breath and softened her voice. "Darling, it's me." On the other end of the phone, the man seemed to wake up a little. "Honey, what's wrong? It's early in the morning here." "I know. I'm sorry to wake you up from your sleep, but I've been cornered." "Darling, you must help me," Su Yunxian said softly. "What happened?" "Godfather secretly recorded our conversation. I don't know how Mika Kito got a hold of it. She made it into a CD and gave it to the Bailey's family. Now, the Bailey's family is questioning me. Darling, I don't know what to do." Su Yunxian's weak and helpless voice was transmitted to the man's ears through the microphone. The man frowned. "Don't worry. Only the Bailey's family knows about this. You just need to prove to them that the evidence was forged. Then, you can delay them for a while. At the same time, you can destroy the evidence in Mika Kito's hands." Su Yunxian replied softly, "The CD has been sent to the technical department of the police station for technical evaluation. Can you send someone to replace it?" The man said in a deep voice, "The police station is not that easy to break into. Darling, please help me. I'm begging you." Su Yunxian's voice was weak. The way she called him "darling" was enough to make one's bones go soft. The man was silent for a moment before he said, "I'll send someone to do it. As for the evidence left behind by Mika Kito, I'll also arrange for the best hackers to destroy it." "Darling, thank you," Su Yunxian said softly. She did not know that the 2 calls she made had been eavesdropped on by Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao through the wiretap. They had also recorded the conversation. This evil woman, she's already at the end of her rope and she's still trying to play tricks. Xiao Bao clenched his fists and his little face was filled with anger. We can't let her have her way. Little Wingzi rubbed his chin with a serious expression on his face. Who's the darling behind her? Why don't we hand this matter over to Uncle Shen and ask him to help us dig out the person behind this bad woman? Aren't they going to sneak into the police station? Then we'll let Uncle Shen wait for them. Xiao Bao's pink lips curled up. They immediately sent the 2 recordings to Mika Keto. After Mika Keto received the recordings, he frowned slightly. His slender fingers tapped lightly on the sofa. If the man behind Su Yunxian wanted to destroy the evidence in his hands, the best way would be to hack into the computer. His eyes suddenly narrowed. Jiang Dao. Boss. Jiang Dao strode to his side. Edit Su Yunxian's video and the 2 recordings sent by Xiao Bao together and save them on a portable hard drive. If there's a hacker attack, deliberately leave a loophole for the other party to hack into, then trace the other party's information. Yes. Jiang Dao received the order and immediately began to deploy the plan to catch a turtle in a jar. Mika Keto suddenly turned his head and looked at Suzaku. Take a few people with you to monitor the police station. Be careful, don't leave anyone alive. He wanted to see who was behind Su Yunxian. The night was getting darker. A figure appeared in front of the police station's command building. He was wearing black tights and a silver mask on his face. His deep eyes flashed sharply as he fixed his gaze on the building in front of him. He pulled his hands at his waist and a pair of hang gliders suddenly appeared on his back. He pressed a button at his waist and the hang gliders brought him up slowly toward the top floor of the building. Under the moonlight, he looked like a big black bird as he slowly landed on the top floor. He retracted the hang gliders and leaped toward the door at the top of the building. After passing through the door, he could directly enter the police station. As far as he knew, the technical department was on the 12th floor. However, before entering the corridor, he took off his tights. It turned out that he was wearing a police uniform underneath. Then, he took off the mask on his face. Under the moonlight, a handsome Asian face was revealed. He casually stuffed the mask into the clothes covering his chest and then hid the tights in a corner. After doing all this, he put on the earpiece and said in Italian, "I'm going in." The person who responded to him also spoke in Italian. "No problem, I'm ready." "Be careful, Thunder." Thunder grunted in a low voice, "Okay." Just as he finished speaking, all the surveillance cameras in the building went black. The policeman on duty in the monitoring room patted the machine in confusion, thinking that the machine had malfunctioned. He restarted the machine, but it still didn't go back to normal. The policeman on duty picked up the phone and called his colleague in the technical department to help check it out. The moment the surveillance cameras went black, Thunder had already rushed to the technical department like a ghost. When the person on duty received a call from the monitoring room and walked out of the office, he immediately sneaked in quietly. There were all kinds of evidence in the technical department. Thunder used his gloved hands to search around. Finally, he found a CD in a drawer. The CD had a label, Su Yunxian, on it. He immediately took out the fake CD hidden in his arms, tore off the label, stuck it on the fake CD, and put it back in the drawer. Then, he put the real CD in his arms and hurried out of the technical department's office. Just as he took 2 steps, a voice suddenly came from behind him. "Who are you? It's so late, why haven't you gotten off work yet?" Thunder pressed the brim of his hat down and turned around. He saw the staff on duty in the technical department. He smiled and said, "I'm a new intern. The leader gave me a task and asked me to work overtime to complete it." The staff on duty didn't suspect him and smiled. "Then you go ahead and go home early when you're done." Thunder smiled. "Okay." The staff on duty nodded, opened the office door and walked in. Thunder pressed the brim of his hat even lower, almost covering his entire face. He lowered his head and walked back to the rooftop. He put on his tights on the rooftop and used his hang glider to fly down. He landed steadily behind the building. A black Land Rover was waiting for him behind the building. He quickly got into the car. The driver was a handsome foreign man. He turned to look at Thunder and asked, "Thunder, did you succeed?" Thunder smiled. "I almost gave myself away. Luckily I'm alert. Jamie, let's go. I feel uncomfortable within 100 meters of the police station." Jamie laughed. "Then you still dare to take on this case?" Thunder shrugged. "Who asked you to pay me so well? Okay, let's go." Jamie started the car and stepped on the accelerator. The car shot out like an arrow leaving a bow. After their car drove out, a black Porsche Cayenne quietly followed them. In order not to be discovered by the other party, the distance between the Cayenne and the Land Rover was always 1 to 200 meters. Lu Xing was in charge of driving while Suzaku used a pair of binoculars to observe the direction of the Land Rover. The left fork, to the right, Suzaku kept watch while directing Lu Xing. After following for more than half an hour, the Land Rover drove to the hospital where Su Yunxian was. Thunder jumped out of the car and knocked on Su Yunxian's door with the stolen CD. Thunder had already changed his clothes. He was wearing a pair of jeans and a windbreaker. There was a bright smile on his face, just like a big boy. Su Yunxian looked at him. Her eyes moved but she didn't say a word. Her expression hid some wariness. Thunder smiled and handed the CD to her. "Don't worry, I'm here to help you. This is what you want." Su Yunxian took the CD and said lightly, "Thank you." "You're welcome. I'm leaving." Thunder waved and disappeared at the end of the corridor. Su Yunxian locked the door, took out a lighter and lit the CD. A few minutes later, the CD turned into a pile of dust and was washed down the drain. Thunder jumped into the Land Rover and started the car. The Cayenne continued to follow. Jamie glanced at Thunder and said, "Where do you live? I'll send you home." "No need, you can just drop me off at the next bus stop." Jamie exclaimed exaggeratedly, "No way, you took this case and got paid 1 million, but you took the bus home." Thunder smiled meaningfully. "Isn't it good to save a little?" He really got out of the car at the bus stop. Coincidentally, there was a bus coming. He didn't care where it was going and jumped on the bus. There weren't many people on the last bus. He found a seat and sat down. His deep gaze looked through the window and behind him. Suzaku saw Thunder sitting on the bus with her binoculars. She frowned slightly. Damn this guy, she didn't expect him to be so vigilant. He had separated from Jamie and was going in different directions. Her team could only split into 2 to follow. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 265. Suzaku said in a low voice, "Lu Xing, continue to follow that Land Rover. I'll go after that man in black." Lu Xing turned to look at her. "Be careful." I know. Remember to leave him alive." "All right." Suzaku jumped down from the Cayenne and stood at the intersection. Coincidentally, a taxi came. She stopped it and asked the driver to follow the bus that Thunder was on. Although the bus had already driven a long distance, its speed was not as fast as the taxi. Soon, they caught up with the bus. The bus stopped at the bus stop. Among the people who got off, there was no Thunder. Suzaku said coldly, "Continue to follow." After following for another 7 stops, Thunder finally got off the bus. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and stood under the bus stop. His hair covered his forehead, revealing a pair of deep eyes. He stood under the bus stop leisurely until the taxi stopped by the road. Suzaku got off the car. He watched her walk over step by step and the corners of his lips curled up. "You've been following me for a long time." Suzaku said indifferently, "You're very vigilant." Thunder grinned. "In my line of work, if I wasn't vigilant, would have been arrested long ago." Suzaku stared into his eyes. "Thunder, you're the best art forger and art thief in China. I didn't expect you to help others steal discs." Thunder's gaze swept across the iPad in her hand and he shrugged. "Looks like you've investigated me very carefully. Your database is quite impressive." Suzaku didn't deny it. She had already taken a picture of Thunder on the way and sent it to the Senku Group's database for comparison. Very quickly, she dug out all the details of Thunder. She said indifferently, "If you cooperate, I won't make things difficult for you." Thunder's eyes flashed with a smile. "I've always been very cooperative with a beauty like you." Suzaku's expression didn't change. She said indifferently, "Who hired you to steal discs?" "Jamie." "Who's Jamie?" "Jamie is the driver in the Land Rover. He was the one who took care of my operation this time." Thunder crossed his arms and did not hide anything. "I snuck into the police station and Jamie was in charge of hacking the police station surveillance cameras." Suzaku asked, "Jamie's identity?" Thunder shrugged. "I'm not sure. I only know that his name is Jamie." He seemed to have thought of something. "Ah, right, he should be Italian. He kept talking to me in Italian. Luckily, I'm very knowledgeable and know a little bit of Italian." Suzaku's eyes moved as she asked, "How did he contact you?" "Mobile phone." Thunder stroked his chin. "I don't know how he got my number. I'm guessing that if you call his number now, his phone will be turned off or the service will stop." Suzaku took out her mobile phone and dialed the number he gave. Sure enough, she heard a cold female voice reminding her that the user had turned off her phone. People like them wouldn't leave any evidence for others to use against them. As soon as the transaction was over, Jamie had already turned off his phone and threw it away. "Alright, I've already told you everything I know. Can I go now?" Thunder spread out his hands. Suzaku replied with a faint After he turned to leave, she suddenly said in a voice that was neither loud nor soft, "I'm very curious. Why didn't Jamie kill you to silence you? Logically speaking, only the dead keep secrets. Are you really not close to each other?" A glint flashed across Thunder's eyes. He turned around and smiled mischievously. "Perhaps it's because of my personal charm that Jamie couldn't bear to kill me. We really aren't close. Otherwise, I wouldn't have told you these things." "Is that so?" Suzaku didn't comment, but her gaze followed his back as he left. Her brows slowly furrowed. Regardless of whether Thunder was telling the truth or not, the main point was that Jamie. If they caught him, they might be able to dig out Su Yunxian's backer. Thunder put his hands in his trouser pockets and walked confidently into a dark alley. When he was sure that no one was following him, he took out his phone and dialed a number. After 2 rings, Jamie's voice came through. "Yes? Jamie, let me remind you. Someone is following you. Be careful." He didn't wait for Jamie to speak and hung up the phone. He threw the phone into the trash can. He shrugged and ran his fingers through his hair sadly. Sigh, it was time for him to change his ID and phone again. Jamie really wanted to curse. Damn Thunder, couldn't he have warned him earlier? It was too late now. Jamie had already parked the car outside his apartment. Through the rearview mirror, he saw a Cayenne parked by the road. That was the stalker. Jamie frowned. He wasn't in a hurry to get out of the car. Instead, he dialed the phone in the apartment to inform his companions. Soon, 2 foreign brawny men with guns rushed out. They fired at the Cayenne. The bullets stuck in the bulletproof glass and were covered with fine cracks. The intense gunshots didn't stop. The Cayenne was shot like a beehive, but the people inside didn't move at all. The two brawny men held their guns and cautiously moved towards the Cayenne. A brawny man aimed at the car and waved his hand. Another brawny man kicked open the rear door that was riddled with bullet holes. The moment he stuck his head out to check, a pair of hands suddenly reached out from under the car and grabbed his ankles. Then, with great force, they pulled him back. "Ah!" the brawny man cried out in shock. His body fell back with a thud. His whole body was pulled under the car. There was an intense struggle. From time to time, arms or legs would come out of the car. The brawny man in charge of cover bent down to look down, but he didn't dare to shoot. He was worried that he would accidentally shoot his companions. Bang bang, 2 gunshots sounded. The fight under the car stopped. Blood slowly flowed out from under the car. The brawny man called his companions' names twice. There was no response. He gritted his teeth and shot under the car. Suddenly, a black figure jumped out from the other side of the car. Bang! A gunshot sounded. The brawny man was shot in the forehead. He stared dumbfoundedly at the pistol in the black figure's hand and slowly fell to the ground. Lu Xing expressionlessly glanced at the corpse in front of him. Holding a pistol, he broke into the apartment. At the same time when the gunfight happened, Jamie had already escaped into the apartment. He tied the pistol to his waist and planned to jump out of the window and escape from the backyard. He didn't expect that just as he jumped out of the window, 2 men in black suits jumped out from the bushes and captured him. Jamie knew Mika Kito's methods. In order to force a confession out of him, he would definitely torture himself until he was better off dead. So when the 2 men escorted him to the car, he suddenly bent his arm and hit the man in black behind him in the ribs. Taking advantage of the moment when the other party relaxed, he suddenly turned and ran towards the road. Bang! Shooting Star raised his arm and fired a shot at Jamie's leg. He fell to his knees with a thud and smashed his head onto the road. "Catch him! Don't let him die!" Lu Xing roared. 2 of his men ran over and pressed Jamie's head. Lu Xing reached out to check Jamie's breathing and pulse. His breathing was very weak. Fresh blood flowed all over the ground. He growled, "Quick, carry him to the car and send him back to the villa for treatment." When Jamie was carried to Miyamoto Hanzo's operating table, he had already stopped breathing. It turned out that not only did he hit his head on the ground, but when Lu Xing and the others pressed his head down, he also bit off his tongue. Miyamoto Hanzo shook his head. "This guy wants to die. There's no saving him." Lu Xing's expression turned ugly. Boss had instructed them to keep him alive, but he still died in his own hands. How was he going to explain this to Boss? Just then, Suzaku pushed in a man who was tied up. The man's eyes were covered with a black cloth and he was mumbling non-stop. "Why are you like this? I've already said that I don't know anything about Jamie." Lu Xing's gaze turned over. Suzaku pursed her lips and pulled the black cloth off the man's face, revealing Thunder's handsome face. Suzaku said mildly, "Jamie is already dead." When Thunder saw Jamie lying on the operating table, a complicated look flashed across his eyes. He shouted, Hey, what does his death have to do with me? I've already told you that I only took 1 million from him to help him steal the CD from the police station. Our relationship is that simple." Vermilion Bird coldly snorted, "You called Jamie in the alley, I already heard it." She raised her hand and shook the thing in her hand. "This phone is the one you threw in the trash can. How about it? I'm not wrong, am I?" More than an hour ago, Suzaku had secretly followed behind Thunder and eavesdropped on his phone call. She had then blocked Thunder from the other exit and fought with him without a word. In the end, she had subdued him and tied him up and brought him to the villa. "Alright, you win. I did call Jamie, but that doesn't prove that we're old friends. He's my employer. I'm just reminding him out of goodwill. Can't I do that? Yes, of course you can. You can continue to quibble, but you'll soon know that this is wrong. Suzaku waved her hand and 2 bodyguards came forward and forced the braces into Thunder's mouth. She said coldly, "This is to prevent you from committing suicide because you can't take the torture. Welcome to hell on earth and enjoy 108 torture tools." When the bodyguards pushed a small cart full of tools in front of Thunder, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. These tools were all stained with blood. No matter which one was used on him, it would make him wish he was dead. Lu Xing put on the gloves expressionlessly and glanced at him. "It's not too late for you to talk now." Thunder shouted, I'll talk. He was just an elegant art thief who dealt with expensive art and antique dealers. At most, he would be chased by the police. He had never seen such a cruel situation. The other party hadn't even made a move and he couldn't take it anymore. Welfare, Songshu 566. Chapter 266. Tell me, I want to know Jamie's background. Lu Xing pulled up a chair and sat in front of Thunder. Thunder smiled bitterly. Actually, I really don't know much. Last year, I stole a painting by Raphael from the Uffizi Art Gallery. At that time, the seller I contacted was one of Jamie's subordinates. Jamie said that he appreciated my methods and left my contact information. This is the first time he contacted me to help him. That simple? Don't you know the boss behind him? Lu Xing looked doubtful. Thunder was helpless. It's really that simple. I don't have a personal relationship with him. Other than knowing that he's Italian and controls the black market for art, I know nothing about him. From the information revealed by Thunder, Mika Kito could only guess that Su Yunxian was related to the Italian mafia. As for who her backer was, she didn't know. According to Thunder, he had stolen Raphael's painting, Shao Girl in a Scarf. Jamie's men had helped him dispose of the stolen goods. If he could find the whereabouts of the painting and trace back to the source of the stolen goods, he might be able to find the organization behind Jamie. Mika Kito personally called Tomac and asked him to help investigate this matter. After the interrogation, Jiang Dao walked quickly to Mika Kito and said in a low voice, "A hacker attacked our database. Dao has already followed your instructions and left a loophole for the other party. The other party has successfully destroyed the video, but Dao has also traced the IP address. It's a public network in Rome." The hacking incident once again proved that Su Yunxian was indeed related to the mafia. Mika Kito sneered. She thinks that she can sleep with Wu Yu just because she destroyed the evidence? I'm going to destroy all of her hopes. An hour later, Jiang Dao uploaded all the videos and recordings to the internet. Also, mail the backup to the TV station. Tomorrow morning, Su Yunxian will be greeted with an earth-shattering scandal. Suzaku suddenly said, "Do you want to replace the CD that was replaced by Thunder in the police station?" Mika Kito raised her hand. "I'll send someone else to handle this." As an influential figure in the underworld, how could he not bribe 1 or 2 government officials? There were also corrupt people in the police station. As long as he had something on them, they would naturally do things for him. It would be a piece of cake to change the disc. Su Yunxian tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. Until she received a mysterious phone call, telling her that the evidence in Beitang Shen's hands had been destroyed. Only then did she feel completely relieved. She comfortably lay on the bed and slept until dawn. She was awakened by a quick knock on the door. She slowly changed her clothes and combed her hair before opening the door of the ward. Kacha kacha, the flashes of the camera almost blinded her, and she subconsciously raised her hand to cover her face. A group of reporters crowded the door, holding cameras and microphones in their hands. They asked all at once, "Miss Su, is the video real?" Did you really set up a trap for Mr. and Mrs. Bailey with the mysterious man? Miss Sue, were you really raped, or was it an act? Miss Sue, who is the mysterious man? Who is the darling you mentioned on the phone? Miss Sue, does your family know about the trap you set? Miss Sue, a series of questions flooded Su Yunxian like a tide, almost suffocating her. She covered her face with one hand and blocked the reporters at the door with the other. She returned to the room and wanted to close the door, but it was blocked by 2 male reporters with their bodies. There was no way she could close it. Su Yunxian suddenly put down the hand that was covering her face. Tears welled up in her beautiful eyes and she sobbed softly. Mommy, I'm so scared. Where are you? Sob. The reporters were instantly dumbfounded. They held their cameras and shot, and the questions came to an abrupt end. A reporter behind shouted, Miss Sue, your acting skills are so good. If you were to act in a movie, you would definitely win an Oscar. It's so scary. Get out of the way. Su Yunxian cried harder and harder. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain, making people pity her. Miss Sue, stop acting. The video of you on the internet is going viral. Sob. Su Yunxian did not refute. Instead, she squatted down, curled up into a ball, and sobbed. She looked like an abandoned animal, pitiful and pitiful. She even cried out miserably, Nurse, save me, as if responding to her cry for help. The doctor and nurse heard the news and rushed over. They squeezed in front of Su Yunxian and blocked the reporters behind them. Please get out of the way. Don't film anymore. This is a hospital. A reporter put the microphone in front of the doctor and asked anxiously, Are you Miss Sue's attending doctor? Is Miss Sue really crazy? Or did she use her superb acting skills to deceive everyone? No comment. Please respect my patient. The doctor politely and coldly threw down this sentence. He escorted Su Yunxian back to the ward and closed the door with a bang. The head nurse said politely, Everyone, this is a hospital. Our patient needs to be quiet. Please leave. A female reporter smiled and said, Head nurse, may I ask if Miss Sue is really sick? The head nurse replied, This is the patient's privacy. It's not convenient for us to disclose it. Everyone, please cooperate with the hospital's regulations. The reporters pestered the doctor and nurse to ask more questions, but the answers they received were, It's not convenient to disclose, no comment, and so on. They had to give up and leave the hospital. The doctor and nurse comforted Su Yunxian. When she calmed down, they left. They sent security guards to guard outside the ward to prevent the patient from being disturbed by the media again. Su Yunxian was the only one left in the ward. Her gaze suddenly turned cold. She turned on the computer and realized that her scandal had spread throughout the entire city. The television news and newspaper reports about her were all over the place. She had also become a celebrity on the internet. Someone dug up her previous kidnapping videos and sharply analyzed that when she read the note written by the kidnapper, her expression was strange and her expression was too fake. There were also people who collected Su Yunxian's previous public photos and reports of her participation in public welfare activities and charity activities. They criticized her smile for being too fake, criticized her for using public welfare and charity to raise her image, and accused her of being a hypocrite. After that, some employees of the Su group who were not willing to reveal their names posted that they had seen Su Yunxian throw a cup in anger with their own eyes. They had also seen her fierce gaze and strange smile. The mask of a goddess had been exposed. There were also people who revealed that they had slept with Goddess Su. Goddess Su had SM tendencies and even posted photos of some instruments, such as whips, handcuffs, candles, and so on. Of course, there were no photos of Goddess Su. This person said that Goddess Su never left any evidence that could be used against her. Therefore, except for the person involved, almost no one knew her true nature. Even her ex-boyfriend, Bailey Hahn, was kept in the dark. As soon as this post was posted, it immediately became a godly post. Tens of thousands of people reposted it, tens of thousands of people bowed to the post owner, and tens of thousands of people bombarded Su Yunxian. She soon became notorious and was despised by people. Su Yunxian was so angry that she smashed everything in the room, including the vase that Xiao Yi gave her. Because she was so angry, she did not notice that the moment the vase broke, a small black thing jumped under the bed. Damn it, calm down, I need to calm down. After venting, Su Yunxian clenched her fists and tried to calm down. The video was taken by her godfather, so who made the 2 phone recordings? Su Yunxian's mind raced. She clearly remembered that she made the phone calls in this room. Therefore, someone must have placed a listening device or surveillance device in the room. She looked through everything in the room, including the mattress, sofa, table, wardrobe, and even every corner of the bathroom. However, she did not find the listening device. She messed up the room, but she did not expect that the listening device she was looking for had already rolled under the bed. The Su family was implicated and the villa was surrounded by reporters. However, no matter what people said, they still believed that Su Yunxian was innocent and that she was framed. Now, Mrs. Su placed all her hopes on the authenticity of the CD. Mrs. Su wanted to visit Su Yunxian at the hospital, but she could only sneak out from the back door. She wore sunglasses and a hat and quietly came to the hospital. Fortunately, the reporters outside the room were all driven away by the nurses, so she did not encounter any obstacles when she entered. The room was in a mess. Su Yunxian was like a frightened little animal. She hugged her legs and trembled on the sofa. Her eyes were full of fear. When she saw Mrs. Su come in, she threw herself at her and cried, "Mommy, why did you come so late? There were so many people just now. It was so scary. Don't be afraid. Mommy is here." Mrs. Su held her daughter in her arms and gently stroked her back. "Yunxian, don't be afraid. Mommy won't let them hurt you." Before she came to the hospital, Su Bolin and Su Jin had already used their connections to do crisis PR and planned to clear Su Yunxian's name. Mrs. Su comforted Su Yunxian. Unexpectedly, the door of the ward was opened and the old lady of Bailey came in with her family. They were followed by 2 policemen and 2 reporters. One of the reporters was holding an interview microphone and the other was carrying a camera. They aimed the camera at Mrs. Su and Su Yunxian. "Auntie," Mrs. Su saw this and had a bad feeling. The old lady snorted. "Huilan, I'll give Su Yunxian one last chance for the sake of the friendship between our families. If she admits her mistakes in front of everyone, I'll give her a chance to turn over a new leaf. If she refuses to come to her senses, then don't blame me for being cruel." Beauty novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 267. Auntie, don't be fooled by the rumors. Yunxian would never do such a thing. Madame Su still defended her daughter at this point. The old madam's cold gaze locked onto Su Yunxian. She said coldly, "Su Yunxian, what else do you have to say for yourself?" Su Yunxian clenched her fists tightly. Her timid gaze swept across the crowd. A few thoughts flashed through her mind. In the end, she decided to take a gamble. Tears welled up in her eyes. She sobbed pitifully and said fearfully, "Grandma, you're so fierce, very well." The old madam was so angry that she stomped her walking stick on the ground. "You're still pretending at this point. I'll let you die a clear death." "Xiao Wang, sorry to trouble you." A policeman stood up from behind, took out a CD from his briefcase, and said, "After the technical department's identification and analysis, the face of the woman in this CD is exactly the same as Miss Su's. They belong to the same person, and the voice analysis is also a complete match. From this, we conclude that the woman in this CD is Miss Su. Madame Su's eyes widened in disbelief. No. No, this is impossible. Yunxian would never do such a thing. It's impossible. The old madam said coldly, Huilan, whether you believe it or not, the truth is the truth. Her cold gaze fell on Su Yunxian. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife. Su Yunxian, you're so heartless. Not only did you lie to us, but you even have the heart to lie to your parents. Look at your mother. She's been protecting you until now. How can you bear to do this? Su Yunxian's expression was blank. Even in the face of the old madam's accusation, her expression did not change at all. Madame Su grabbed her shoulders. Tears welled up in her eyes. Yunxian, tell mommy that you didn't lie to me. Tell me. Su Yunxian's blank expression didn't change, but her hands quietly clenched. The old madam's sharp gaze was fixed on her, trying to find a flaw in her. Therefore, the old madam caught her every move. Old madam stared at her hands and sneered, Su Yunxian, you finally know how to be nervous. Otherwise, why are you clenching your hands so tightly? Even though she was calm, Su Yunxian couldn't help but tremble. Mrs. Su's hands on her shoulders sensed this subtle change. Yunxian, tell me the truth. Are those videos real? Mrs. Su stared into her daughter's eyes, holding on to the last glimmer of hope. Su Yunxian was silent. She kept silent. Xiao Bao suddenly stood up. There was a strange smile on his pink cheeks. Don't force her. I have new evidence to prove that she's pretending to be crazy. He took out a recording pen from his pocket and pressed the play button. Immediately, there was the sound of things being smashed in the room. The old madam and the others looked at the messy floor. This must be the result of Su Yunxian smashing things just now. Suddenly, the sound of things being smashed stopped. Su Yunxian gritted her teeth and said, damn it. Calm down. I need to calm down. Xiao Bao turned off the recording pen and snorted. Su Yunxian knows very well what happened. She also knows that she's in trouble. May I ask, how can a mentally ill person be so clear-headed? Madame Su shook her daughter's shoulders agitatedly. Yunxian, is this true? Did you really lie to us? Su Yunxian bit her lips tightly and didn't say a word. However, the despair in her eyes couldn't be hidden from everyone's eyes. Madame Su shook her head. She couldn't believe that her most beloved daughter would lie to her. She shook her daughter's shoulders as if she had gone crazy. Hurry up and deny it. Say that you didn't lie to me. Yunxian, tell them that you didn't lie. You didn't do those things. Su Yunxian closed her eyes in despair. Madame Su was on the verge of breaking down. She slapped her daughter's face and roared in grief, you bastard, how could you do such a thing? How could you hide it from your father and me? Do you know how much effort and tears we've shed for you? How could you trample on our hearts like this? You disappoint me. Madame Su was so angry that her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Su Yunxian hugged her nervously and called out anxiously, Mommy, Doctor, Doctor. The doctor rushed in and anxiously checked on Madame Su's condition. Su Yunxian stood aside, not knowing what to do. Madame Su waved her hand and the reporters stopped filming. Madame Su glanced coldly at Su Yunxian and said, Xiao Gao, I want the things you filmed to be broadcasted on TV immediately. The reporter named Xiao Gao nodded repeatedly. No problem. Let's go. Thank you for your hard work today. Madame Su chatted with the police and reporters for a while. She didn't look at Su Yunxian again and led everyone out of the ward. Soon, all the electronic screens on the street were broadcasting the short clip of Madame Su exposing Su Yunxian's true colors. All the radio stations also broadcast it one after another. More negative news about Su Yunxian came flooding in. They said that she was cold-blooded and heartless. She didn't care about her family's feelings and kept them in the dark. Her mother was so angry that she fainted. They said that she was as cunning as a fox and didn't surrender until the last moment. She became a well-known bad woman. Mothers on the street used her as a negative example to teach their young daughters. Don't learn from that bad woman. If you become like this, I'll kill you and then commit suicide. Su Yunxian's image became the source of many young girls' nightmares for many years. Su Jin and took his weak mother home from the hospital. Su Yunxian followed behind them silently. When the reporters took photos, she was like a puppet. She didn't say a word and let them take photos without any resistance. After returning home, Su Jin and helped his mother upstairs. Su Bolin sat on the sofa and stared at Su Yunxian, who was standing at the entrance. His face was livid as he roared, "Kneel." Su Yunxian's face was pale. She knelt on the ground with a thump. Her back was straight like a statue. Su Bolin was furious. He threw a thick stack of newspapers in front of her. "How did I give birth to such a shameless daughter like you?" The newspapers were scattered on the ground. Every one of them had news about her on the front page. Some said that she was hypocritical, some said that she was having an affair behind her ex-boyfriend's back. Some accused her of framing Xia Dong and Bai Li Han. Even the fact that she had faked her pregnancy to force Bai Li Han to marry her was exposed. Su Yunxian finally understood what it meant to be kicked when a man is down. "You unfilial daughter. You actually hid it from us until the last moment." The more Su Bolin thought about it, the angrier he became. He raised his hand and slapped her hard on the cheek. 5 streaks of blood immediately appeared on her fair and tender face. Su Bolin wanted to slap her a second time, but Su Jin and rushed downstairs and stopped him. Su Jin and grabbed Su Bolin's arm and said in a low voice, "Dad, don't be rash. Let go of me. Let me beat this unfilial daughter to death." Su Bolin's eyes were red. How much heartache, how much tears, and how much effort had their family put in for this unfilial daughter? But she actually hid it from her family and didn't care about what her family thought at all. Just thinking about this made Su Bolin want to beat her to death. "Dad, what's the use of hitting her now? The most important thing now is to find a way to solve this problem." Su Bolin paused for a moment and slowly put down his arm. "Jin, get ready. We're going to Bailey's house now to ask for forgiveness." His eyes flashed sharply. He stared at Su Yunxian and raised his voice. "And you, get ready. Let's go together." Su Yunxian pursed her lips and stood up trembling. Her legs were numb from kneeling for too long. She held on to the wall and slowly went upstairs. Looking at her lonely back, Su Jin and had a complicated look in his eyes. In the living room of Bailey's old residence, Su Bolin brought Su Jin and Su Yunxian to ask for forgiveness. The 3 of them stood awkwardly at the door. The old madam and Bailey Xiong sat on the sofa with cold expressions. They lowered their eyes and drank tea, as if they didn't hear the butler's announcement. After giving them the cold shoulder for nearly 10 minutes, the old madam slowly raised her head and said mildly, "President Su, thank you for coming. You brought your son and daughter. What's the matter?" Su Bolin's old face squeezed out an awkward smile. "Auntie, we're here to ask for forgiveness." He suddenly turned to Su Yunxian and said sternly, "Yunxian, kneel down." Su Yunxian didn't say a word and knelt straight on the cold floor. "I don't deserve it. I'm just an old woman with one leg in the coffin. How can I deserve Miss Su's kneel? Housekeeper, quickly help Miss Su up. President Su, please go back too." Our small temple can't afford to worship a great Buddha. The old madam's every word was laced with sarcasm, mocking Su Bolin and the other 2 to the point that they couldn't even raise their heads. "Miss Su, quickly get up." The butler reached out to help Su Yunxian up, but she avoided him. Her legs seemed to have grown roots as she stubbornly knelt on the ground. Sue Boland's old face turned green and white. "Auntie, I'm very ashamed. It's my fault for not teaching her well. That's why Yunxian became like this. For the sake of the friendship between our two families, please give Yunxian a chance to turn over a new leaf." The old madam coldly looked at Su Yunxian, who lowered her head and didn't say a word. "I gave her a chance, but she didn't grasp it. When she hurt Xiaodong and Ahan, why didn't she think about the friendship between our two families? Bolan, if you still treat me as an elder, quickly go back. No matter what you say, I won't give you a chance." Su Yunxian suddenly knocked her forehead heavily on the ground and sobbed. "Grandma, I beg you. Please forgive me. I was confused for a moment. Don't. I don't deserve to be called grandma by you. Besides, you and Ahan have nothing to do with each other now. You have no reason to call me grandma," the old madam said mercilessly. "Butler, quickly help Miss Sue up. Miss Sue, quickly get up." The butler grabbed Su Yunxian's arm and forcefully pulled her up, but she remained on the ground and refused to get up. Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 268. Su Jinan, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly raised his head. "Old madam, Yunxian is insensible and has brought a lot of trouble and harm to the Bailey's family. We don't ask for your forgiveness, we just ask that you give her a chance to start anew. Our whole family will be grateful. Jinan, you're a good boy. No matter what, I won't let go of this matter. Now, you can solve the problems outside by yourselves. I won't interfere. That's all I have to say. I'm tired. Butler, see them out. Everyone, please go back." The three of them left gloomily. Old madam suddenly said, "Wait." The three of them were delighted. Old madam said, "Butler, send President Sue's gift back." The Sue family looked defeated. The Bailey's family had a very important position in this media war. If they refused to let go, the Sue family would have a hard time dealing with this matter. On the way home, the atmosphere was heavy. No one spoke. Su Yunxian knew that she had done something wrong, so she acted more carefully. After returning home, she didn't dare to look at her father's pale face. She quietly went upstairs and locked herself in her room. No one knew what she did. At dinner, she didn't go downstairs. Although her family was angry at what she had done, they didn't completely give up on her. They still asked the butler to send food to her room. However, the food was the same when it was sent in. She didn't eat it at all. The next morning, Su Yunxian still didn't go downstairs. Mrs. Su was worried and asked the butler to go upstairs to check on her. The butler knocked on the door. "Miss?" There was no response. "Miss, I'm coming in." The butler opened the door with the spare key. The room was empty. There was no sign of Su Yunxian at all. He looked around. There was no bathroom, cloakroom, or bedroom. Finally, he found a letter written in blood in front of the dressing mirror. The butler's fingers trembled violently. He scrambled downstairs and shouted in panic, "Bad news, old master, bad news, what's going on?" Su Bolan frowned. This is Mrs. Blood letter." The butler's hands trembled as he presented the blood letter to Su Bolan. Su Bolan's eyes narrowed. He hurriedly took the blood letter and hurriedly read the words on it. All the blood in his body rushed to the top of his head. His vision turned black and he almost fainted. The butler hurriedly supported him and pinched his philtrum. "Master, don't be agitated, Dad," Su Jin and stood up abruptly and walked over quickly. He helped Su Bolan to the sofa. Mrs. Su nervously covered his forehead with a wet towel. Su Bolan slowly opened his eyes and grabbed Su Jin An's wrist. His voice trembled. Quick, go find Yunqian, quick. Dad, don't be agitated. I'll go and find Yunqian right away. Su Jinan picked up the bloody letter that had fallen to the ground and hurriedly read the handwriting on it. His expression changed greatly. Without caring about anything else, he hurriedly grabbed his coat and car keys and rushed out of the villa. Mrs. Su wiped her tears and asked, "Honey, what happened to Yunqian?" Her son left with the letter and she was the only one who didn't know what was written on it. Su Bolan shook his head and painfully closed his eyes. He didn't want to say anything more. However, the words on the letter floated clearly in his mind. Daddy, Mommy, Big Brother, I'm sorry. I was too stubborn and too stupid. I thought that love was everything. For love, I didn't hesitate to sacrifice my reputation and body. In exchange, what I got in return was betrayal and despair. I'm unfilial and brought shame to the Su family. I don't want to be a disgrace in this world anymore. If there's an afterlife, I want to be Daddy and Mommy's daughter and Big Brother's sister. At that time, I will be filial to my parents and respect my brothers. Big Brother, please take care of Daddy and Mommy. Don't look for me and don't be sad. I brought this upon myself. I love you. Yunqian's last words. Honey, did something happen to Yunqian? Mrs. Su shook Su Bolan's shoulder uneasily. Tell me, did something happen? Su Bolan's throat was filled with the taste of blood. He clenched his fists tightly. No, nothing will happen to Yunqian. Huilan, hurry up and order the servants to go out and find Yunqian. Okay, I got it. Mrs. Su was terrified. She hurriedly asked the butler to call all the servants in the house and ordered them to go out and find Yunqian. Su Bolan forced himself to sit up and called his old friend to help him. He also called the police. He thought that the chief would send people to find Su Yunqian for the sake of the Su family. However, the chief tactfully said that he couldn't file a case since Su Yunqian had been missing for less than 24 hours. Su Bolan knew that the chief was influenced by the old lady of the Bailey. He shamelessly called the old lady. The old lady just said faintly, Su Yunqian's matter has nothing to do with me. Then she ruthlessly hung up the phone. The Su couple was anxious, but they couldn't do anything. It was expected that the old lady wouldn't forgive Yunqian for what she had done. Although the Su family had suffered a great impact because of the scandal, it had accumulated a huge network of connections for decades. Many people were helping to find Su Yunqian's whereabouts. Su Jinan drove fast all the way. Several times, he almost had an accident because of the high speed. He was anxious and his face was cold. He tried to think of where Su Yunqian might go. He drove almost across the entire city but he still couldn't find her. 10 hours later, dusk had fallen. Su Jinan drove the car to the beach with the last glimmer of hope. He ran on the beach in the wind, looking for her everywhere. Half an hour later, he saw a shoe on the edge of a cliff. He rushed over like a madman and picked up the shoe with trembling hands. It was a red high-heeled shoe with tiny crystals inlaid on the shoe. He recognized it. It was the shoe that he had given to Yunqian on her 25th birthday. Yunqian, Su Jinan held the shoe and called Su Yunqian's name in a panic. But only the sound of the wind responded to him. He ran to the edge of the cliff and leaned over to look down. A white silk scarf was wrapped around a protruding rock halfway up the mountain. The surging waves slammed against the rock, splashing water with the silk scarf and shattering all of his hopes. That silk scarf was also a gift he had given her. Su Jinan couldn't hold back his tears anymore. He knelt on the ground and cried bitterly. Yunqian, why are you so stupid? Why are you so stupid? The news of Su Yunqian jumping into the sea spread quickly. Su Bolan seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. His head was full of white spots. Madame Su cried until she fainted a few times. Her eyes were swollen like peaches. In the end, her tears ran dry and her voice became hoarse. She looked haggard like a falling autumn leaf. As the eldest son of the Su family, even if Su Jin was heartbroken, he had to deal with the affairs of the family and the company. The salvage team searched for 2 days, but they couldn't find Su Yunxian's body. The Su family still held on to the last hope that Su Yunxian wasn't dead. Maybe she would appear again one day. When Yisiki found out that Su Yunxian's true face was exposed, she was still on vacation in Sanya. Lin Shihao took Nyonyo to play by the shallow sea. Yisiki was lying under a parasol and using her phone to surf the internet. She saw many scandals about Su Yunxian and saw her jump into the sea. She couldn't help but sit up from the recliner. That's great. This is so satisfying. Yisiki jumped off the recliner excitedly and dialed an international number. Xia Dong had just woken up from her afternoon nap. Her voice was still a little hoarse. Hello. Xia, let me tell you. Su Yunxian's scandals have been exposed. She's now a rat on the street. Everyone wants to beat her up. I only just found out that this woman is so evil. She did so many evil things. Luckily, you and Bailey Han are fine. Yisiki was very excited. Xia Dong scratched her head. Siki, calm down. Speak slowly. I'm still a little confused. Hurry up and surf the internet. Su Yunxian's evil deeds have been exposed. Apparently, she couldn't take the pressure and committed suicide out of guilt. After she jumped into the sea, her body hasn't been found yet. Xia Dong was completely awake. Her feelings were a little complicated. Although she hated Su Yunxian for causing her and Bailey Han so much trouble, she didn't hate her to the extent that she wanted her dead. Yisiki didn't hear a response for a long time and frowned. Xia, don't tell me that you sympathize with Su Yunxian and pity her? She reaped what she sowed. You mustn't sympathize with her. Xia Dong smiled. I know. I won't sympathize with her. She deserved it. By the way, Yezi, it should be very cold over there, right? Keep warm. Don't catch a cold. It's starting to get cold in the city, but Shihao and I are now on vacation in Sanya with Nyonyo. Vacation? That's great. Have fun. Don't worry about these things anymore. When Xia Dong heard that she and Lin Shihao were on vacation together, she guessed that their relationship had returned to normal. She was very happy for them. Okay. Take care of yourself. If there's anything, call me. I got it. You take care too. The two of them chatted for a while more before hanging up. Mommy, come and play. Nyonyo waved at Yisiki from afar. Coming. Yisiki put her cell phone into her handbag and left it with the owner of a nearby stall. She smiled and ran over to her husband and daughter. The family of 3 played beach volleyball on the beach. When they were tired, Lin Shihao took Nyonyo to build a castle with fine sand. Yisiki took photos of them with her camera. From time to time, she would tease them and make funny poses. Then, she would press the shutter to preserve the precious moment. In the evening, someone held a bonfire party on the beach. A group of people barbecued, drank cold beer, danced, laughed, and made noise. It was very lively. The enthusiastic aunts and uncles pulled Lin Shihao's family of 3 over. Nyonyo played with a group of children. Yisiki was pulled by a few aunts to teach her how to dance. Lin Shihao joked with the men. He smiled and declined the beer they offered him. He picked up a glass of coconut juice and toasted with them. A man smiled and said, "Is it because your wife is here that you don't dare to drink? I didn't expect you to be a henpecked husband." Welfare, Shinwu 799. Chapter 269. Lin Shihao smiled. I'm not a good drinker. I'll make a fool of myself if I drink. Besides, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a henpecked husband. It's because I love her that I'm willing to be controlled by her. Mrs. Lin, did you hear that? Your husband is confessing to you. The people around them jeered. Yisiki was so busy learning the dance steps that she didn't know what to do. The auntie beside her poked her arm and whispered something in her ear. Only then did she realize what was going on over there. She looked up and smiled. Being henpecked is actually a sign that the husband dotes on his wife. Hubby, am I right? Lin Shihao smiled and looked at her. Everything my wife says is right. Oh my God, that's so mushy. The two of you are so sweet. The men present shivered and had goosebumps all over the ground. I'm so envious and jealous. How nice would it be if my husband could dote on me like this? The women joked half seriously, but the envy in their eyes could not be concealed. Lin Shihao walked to Yisiki amidst the laughter of the crowd. He stretched out his right hand like a gentleman and smiled. Mrs. Lin, can I have a dance with you? Yisiki saw the gentleness and expression in his eyes. She smiled and put her hand in his palm. Mr. Lin, I'd love to. Melodious music sounded in the night. Lin Shihao hugged Yisiki's waist and led her to dance on the beach. The people around them were influenced by them. They also hugged each other and danced. Nyo Nyo and her little friends acted as foodies, sitting on the beach barefooted, watching the adults dance while eating happily. There was laughter and excitement here. No one noticed that not far away, there was a woman in a white dress standing by the beach. She quietly looked over. Her gaze followed Lin Shihao and Yisiki as they danced. Her eyes gradually turned cold. It was late at night. Lin Shihao hugged Nyonyo, who was sleeping soundly, and Yisiki held his arm. The family of three returned to the hotel. After putting Nyonyo back on the bed, Lin Shihao hugged Yisiki's waist and quietly left her room. Yisiki pointed at the bathroom. Hubby, do you want to shower first, or should I? Lin Shihao hugged her tightly and leaned over to whisper in her ear, honey, let's shower together. Yisiki's cheeks flushed red. She wanted to refuse, but when she looked up and saw his burning gaze, she didn't say anything in the end. She wrapped her arms around his neck and murmured, it was destined to be a romantic night. Lin Shihao bent down, picked her up and walked straight into the bathroom. The bathtub was large enough to accommodate two people. Lin Shihao turned on the tap, and hot water of moderate temperature slowly flowed down. The bathroom was filled with a layer of mist. Lin Shihao hugged her waist gently and rested his chin on her head. He smelled the fragrance of her hair and the faint smell of lemon. Her stiff body gradually relaxed. Leaning against his chest, he leaned over and whispered in her ear, honey, it's been hard on you all these years. She hugged his waist with both hands, and her heart was filled with warmth. She whispered, it's been hard on you too. His burning lips gently rubbed against her earlobe. His warm breath sprayed into her ear, and he whispered, honey, I love you. His affectionate confession moved her. She looked up and kissed him on the lips. Hubby, I love you too. His throat moved, and his gaze deepened. He lowered his head and sucked on her lips, which were trying to escape, and slowly deepened the kiss. His delicate kiss spread to her neck. He held her waist with one hand and held the back of her head with the other. His heart was filled with tenderness. Being able to marry her as his wife was a blessing that he had cultivated for 3 lifetimes. He secretly swore in his heart that he would protect this happiness. His hand on her waist slowly tightened, and his other hand slowly slid down her back. She was wearing a dress. He pulled down the zipper on her back, and his fingers immediately touched her smooth and delicate skin. It was so smooth that he couldn't bear to part with it. His hand slowly slid down and landed on the exquisite curve of her waist. He stared into her eyes. His deep and dark gaze was like a deep well, sucking her heart and soul in. She was deeply immersed in his deep feelings, and her chest started to rise and fall rapidly. The dress slid down her shoulders, down to her waist, and down to her ankles. He lowered his head to look at her soft pink breasts. They were perky and almost popped out of her red bra. His Adam's apple bobbed, and he lowered his head to kiss her smooth forehead again. His soft lips wandered around her face. His kiss was extremely gentle, as if he was treating a treasure, making her feel that her entire body was deeply loved by him. His fine eyelashes gently brushed against her skin like feathers, causing her heart to throb. Her body trembled, and she almost couldn't stand steadily. He suddenly pressed her against the wall, one hand on her waist, and the other holding her hand. She slowly placed it on his clothes, and his voice was low and hoarse. "Honey, help me take it off." She was so shy that her eyelashes trembled. Her hands trembled as she unbuttoned his shirt one by one, revealing his firm and broad chest. When she touched his belt, her hand paused. He bit her shoulder and said hoarsely, "Continue." She unbuckled his belt with trembling hands, and the clicking sound of metal was crisp in the bathroom. When she unzipped it, her fingers couldn't help but touch his erect area. She heard his suddenly heavy breathing, and suddenly had the thought of teasing him. Her slender fingers slowly grasped and pressed lightly. His breathing became heavier, and his hoarse voice sounded extremely sexy. "Honey, you've stirred up my fire, so you have to be responsible for extinguishing it." She could clearly feel his slightly cold fingertips sliding across her skin. His fingers slowly traced the strap of her bra, then slid to her back and gently opened it. His movements were so gentle, as if he was treating his most beloved treasure, and he was afraid that he would hurt her if he moved too hard. She curled her body against his chest, and her soft body rubbed against his hard chest. He clenched his teeth, trying to suppress it. The scorching hot air had reached its peak, as if a match would explode in this enclosed space. He suddenly carried her horizontally and placed her in the bathtub that was already filled with water. After the two of them entered the water, the hot water overflowed from the sides of the bathtub. He was worried that the hard bathtub would hurt her, so he laid down in it. This position made her feel shy, but it also allowed her to see his expression clearly. His handsome face was already covered in sweat, and his brows were furrowed together. His sexy thin lips were tightly pursed, as if he was restraining himself to the extreme. However, his movements were slow and elegant. After that, she softened in his arms, and he helped her clean the mess below. She was so tired that she couldn't even open her eyes. He gently kissed her eyes, carefully wiped the water stains on her body, and then carried her back to the bed. The bright sunlight shone in through the thin curtains. Yisiki uncomfortably turned over, frowned, and slowly sat up. Her entire body was sore, especially when she moved her legs. The soreness was even worse. Thinking about the scene last night, her cheeks couldn't help but heat up. "Hubby." She called out, but there was no response. There was a note at the bedside: "Wifey, I'm taking Nyo-Nyo to play on the beach. You're awake, come over after breakfast." With a smile on her lips, she placed the note back at the bedside. After washing up and eating breakfast, she changed into a bohemian long dress and a white straw hat, and went to the beach to meet up with Lin Shihao and his daughter. Lin Shihao took his daughter to fly a kite by the beach. Nyo-Nyo held the kite in her hand as she jogged. Lin Shihao looked at her from afar. She waved from time to time and called out to him loudly. He smiled and waved back, and the father and daughter looked very warm. A woman in a long blue dress and a sun hat slowly walked to his side and said softly, "Senior." Lin Shihao's body stiffened, and he slowly turned around. His expression was not good. "Mei Wei, why are you here?" Bai Mei Wei had a faint smile on her face. "Senior, have you forgotten that I was planning to go to Sanya for a holiday? Although you can't accompany me, I can't waste my holiday," right? Lin Shihao pursed his thin lips and said in a low voice, I hope that you can pretend that you didn't see me. Bai Meiwei was stunned, and the corners of her lips slowly turned up. Okay, I won't disturb your family of three. They stood sideways on the beach and didn't see Isiki walking over leisurely from afar. Isiki recognized Lin Shihao at a glance and quickened her steps towards him. Unexpectedly, a woman in a long blue dress and a yellow sun hat suddenly appeared beside him. The two of them seemed to be talking about something. Ever since the incident with Bai Meiwei, Isiki had become more sensitive. She felt a little uncomfortable when she saw a woman getting close to Lin Shihao. She almost jogged to a spot not too far away from them, then slowed down her steps and deliberately pretended to be very relaxed as she walked over to them. Hubby, I'm here, Isiki smiled as she called out Lin Shihao's name. She didn't even look at Bai Meiwei. Lin Shihao did not expect her to suddenly appear, and a hint of panic quickly flashed through his eyes. He subconsciously took 2 steps forward and blocked in front of her, blocking her line of sight. Wife, have you eaten breakfast? Yes, I have. Isiki deliberately took a step sideways and glanced at Bai Meiwei, whose back was facing them. Hubby, who is that? Is she someone we know? Why don't you introduce her? Lin Shihao pursed his lips. Just as he was about to say something, Bai Meiwei suddenly turned around and said with a smile, Sister-in-law, what a coincidence. Isiki was stunned. Because Bai Meiwei was wearing a hat, she couldn't see her face clearly from afar. Now that she realized it was her, Isiki's entire body stiffened, and she almost stopped breathing. Honey, Lin Shihao worriedly put his arm around her shoulders and hurriedly explained, Honey, Dr. Bai happened to be on vacation here too. Dr. Bai, a way to draw the line. Bai Meiwei pinched her fingers into her palms and smiled faintly. Yes, sister-in-law, I also applied for a vacation. I didn't expect to choose the same place as you guys. I saw Senior and came over to say hello. I hope I didn't disturb you guys. Awesome novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 270. Isiki lowered her eyes, her long eyelashes casting faint shadows on her eyelids. Lin Shihao tightened his grip on her shoulder. His worry and nervousness were transmitted to her. She forced a smile and slowly raised her head, revealing a faint smile. How could that be? I hope you have fun. Bai Meiwei smiled. Thank you. I hope you have fun too. My friend is waiting for me over there. I'll go over first. Isiki nodded and watched her graceful back disappear into the distance. She slowly pushed Lin Shihao's hand off her shoulder and silently walked over to Nyonyo. Wifey, Lin Shihao quickly chased after her and suddenly grabbed her arm. He pulled her into his embrace and said anxiously, Wifey, believe me. We really just met by chance. There's nothing between us. Isiki lowered her eyes. Her eyes were filled with tears. She didn't know if she should believe him anymore. Why did they have so many coincidences? Wifey, look up at me. Lin Shihao saw that she was silent and panicked. He lifted her chin and saw that her eyes were filled with tears. His heart ached. He lowered his head and kissed her eyes. Siki, baby, don't cry. There's really nothing between us, his gentle coaxing poked at her tears. She suddenly burst into tears. Her hands balled into fists and she hit his back fiercely. She broke down and shouted, What do you want? What do you want? Don't cry, baby. Her cries were like sharp knives cutting into his heart. His heart was about to break. He hugged her tightly and frantically wiped away her tears. I hate you. She hit his back hard. I hate you. It's all my fault. Lin Shihao's eyes were also filled with tears. The two of them hugged each other tightly as if there was no one else around. The people on the beach looked at them in surprise. Nyo saw that something was wrong from afar. She pulled her kite and ran over. She tripped on a sand dune and fell with sand all over her face. She wiped her face and got up to continue running. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Nyo's small chest rose and fell rapidly. She looked up in fear and saw Yisiki crying in Lin Shihao's arms. Her daughter's childish voice was like cold water, waking Yisiki up. She took a deep breath and tried to suppress the emotions in her heart. She wiped the tears from her face and forced an ugly smile. "Nyo, Mommy is fine." "Mommy, are you feeling unwell? You're crying so sadly." Nyo was already 6 years old. She was not a child that was easy to fool. Nyo's hair. How did you get sand all over your body? How? Why are you all covered? Sand. How? Nyo lifted her chubby little hand and wiped away the tears on her mother's face. She said seriously, "Mommy, who bullied you? Tell me and I'll hit him for you." Yisiki smiled through her tears and pinched her daughter's tender cheeks. "No one bullied me. My Nyo is the most obedient." Lin Shihao bent down and picked Nyo up. He ruffled her soft hair. "Nyo, are you tired? Let's go back and rest for a while, okay?" "Okay." Nyo nodded obediently. She turned to look at Yisiki. She puffed up her cheeks and said seriously, "Mommy, hold Daddy's arm. Don't get lost. Mommy isn't like you." "I won't get lost." Yisiki smiled and ruffled her daughter's hair. "Mommy, hold my arm. Hold my arm." The little girl was smart. She seemed to have noticed that something was wrong with Daddy and Mommy, so she begged her. Lin Shihao pursed his lips and reached out his arm. "Honey, let's satisfy Nyo's request." Under her daughter's expectant gaze, Yisiki slowly held Lin Shihao's arm. Nyo was playing with her new friends in the courtyard of the hotel. Yisiki sat on the balcony and watched from afar. Lin Shihao hugged her shoulders from behind. Her body stiffened. She wanted to struggle, but she gave up in the end and let him hug her. He lowered his head and rubbed his chin against her hair. "Honey, don't be angry." Yisiki looked at the wide palm trees that glowed charmingly under the sun. A couple walked hand in hand under the trees with sweet smiles on their faces. In a trance, she seemed to see herself and Lin Shihao when they were in university. Every morning, he would wait for her under the parasol tree under the girls' dormitory. He would bring her breakfast, rain or shine. At that time, they were just good friends. Until one day, she told him that a boy from the Chinese department had written her a love poem. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and told her very seriously that he liked her. They were together just like that. They dated for 8 years and were married for 7 years. She had always trusted him. She never thought that he would betray her one day, but now, her heart was filled with a sense of crisis. Bai Meiwei was beautiful, talented, and had a good family background. She, on the other hand, was already a haggard old woman. Even if Lin Shihao kept saying that he loved her, she still felt insecure and became more and more sensitive. "Wifey." He hugged her, his words full of flattery. She sighed and held his hand. She whispered, "Hubby, it's not your fault. I was too sensitive. I overreacted." Now that she thought about it, she had cried and made a scene in public just now. It was simply too embarrassing. He kissed her forehead and hugged her tightly without saying a word. A single slip could lead to everlasting regret. He was the one who had personally broken her trust in him. It would take a long time to repair that trust. He hesitated and thought about whether he should confess to her about his agreement with Bai Meiwei. Just as he was about to speak, his phone suddenly rang. It was Director Bai. Lin Shihao cleared his throat and picked up the phone. Hello, Director. What's the matter? Bai Jiao said apologetically, Xiao Lin, I'm very sorry to disturb your vacation. It's like this. The municipal party secretary's daughter is about to give birth. The expected date is in 2 days. They want to invite you to be the midwife. Lin Shihao frowned. Director, Dr. Wang and Dr. Chen are more experienced. Can you ask them to deliver the baby? Xiao Lin, I know that you're on vacation now and shouldn't mention this kind of thing. But the municipal party secretary personally asked you to deliver his daughter. I'm also very helpless. Lin Shihao pursed his lips. Bai Jiao said, how about this? I'll make up for the 2 days of vacation you missed at the end of the year. What do you think? Since the director had already said so, Lin Shihao couldn't refuse anymore. He could only say, okay, Director. I'll be back tomorrow. After ending the call, he sat beside Yisiki and said apologetically, Honey, there's a pregnant woman who asked me to deliver the baby. I'll be flying back to City A tomorrow. I'm very sorry. Yisiki put her hand on his forehead and rubbed his furrowed brows. She smiled slightly. It's okay. You can go back first. I'll take Nyonyo out to play for 2 days. But you have to come to the airport to pick us up. Okay. He took her into his arms and kissed her forehead. Honey, thank you. He thanked her for supporting his work all these years. The next morning, Lin Shihao took a plane back to City A. Yisiki wanted to send him to the airport, but he insisted. The two parted at the hotel entrance. He ignored everyone's gaze and hugged her tightly. He kissed her forehead before letting her go. He bent down and hugged Nyonyo. Nyonyo, Daddy will go home first. You have to listen to Mommy these 2 days. Don't run around. I got it. Goodbye, Daddy. Nyonyo kissed him on the cheek. The doorman opened the car door for Lin Shihao. After he got into the car, he waved at Yisiki and his daughter reluctantly. The mother and daughter smiled and waved back. Only when the car disappeared did Yisiki retract her gaze. She bent down and pinched her daughter's cheek. Baby, it's just the 2 of us now. Where do you want to go? Swimming pool. I want to learn how to swim. Okay, let's go to the swimming pool. Let's go back to the room to get our swimsuits first. Yisiki held her daughter's little hand. The mother and daughter chatted and laughed as they returned to the room. This 5-star hotel had a very spacious open-air swimming pool. In front of the white building, there was a large area of clear water. Many tropical trees were planted on the side of the road. Under the sunshade, there were white reclining chairs. Many men and women in swimsuits were sunbathing on the shore or swimming in the pool. Under the blue sky and white clouds, the sun was a little strong. However, with the sea breeze blowing, it didn't feel hot. Nyonyo, lie down on the chair. Mommy will apply sunscreen for you. Yisiki took the towel draped over her daughter's body and applied sunscreen for her. Aya, it's so itchy. Her daughter giggled and flipped over on the chair. Yisiki smiled and said, it'll be done soon. Bear with it a little longer, Mommy, I'll help you apply the sunscreen. After applying it, Nyonyo snatched the sunscreen from her hands. Okay. Yisiki lay face down on the lounge chair. Her daughter's chubby little hand applied the sunscreen on her back. After applying the sunscreen, Yisiki pulled her daughter with one hand and held the children's swimming ring with the other. They walked towards the shallow water area. Under the parasol opposite them, a man wearing sunglasses sat on the lounge chair. He was bare-chested and wore a pair of black swimming trunks. His firm chest and abdominal muscles were perfect without a trace of fat. The women by the pool couldn't help but blush and their hearts beat faster. He held a glass of fresh orange juice in his hand. After seeing Yisiki and her daughter, he placed the orange juice on the table. His slender fingers took off his sunglasses, revealing his deep eyes. They were as mysterious and beautiful as a lake in late autumn. His nose was very, very tall, and his facial features were handsome and charming. His lips curved into a devilish smile, making his mature face even more charming. Ad, Shinwoo 799. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.